Lu Minghan had just detached his head before he began to roar furiously, killing intent soared out of his body. A Grand King had been injured by a group of Sea Expansion disciples, and even had his head cut off. That was an unbearable insult. Lu Minghan, calm down, shouted Li Changfeng. Shut up, how am I supposed to calm down? I'll kill that bastard Longchen. Lu Minghan roared furiously. Majestic energy suddenly erupted from within his body, causing heaven and earth to shake. Have you gone insane? You want to obliterate the entire Xiantian Dao sect? Shouted Li Changfeng. Lu Minghan was using his core energy. The core energy of a king would destroy the Xiantian Dao sect. Shut the hell up. Release me from these nuisance chains now, or I'll do anything I want, roared Lu Minghan. Lu Minghan and Li Changfeng were both from the head sect, but they were from two different departments. Li Changfeng was part of the Elders' Hall, while Lu Minghan was part of the Law Enforcement Hall. When it came to official titles, Li Changfeng's position was a level higher than Lu Minghan's. But because Lu Minghan came from the Law Enforcement Hall, his position was rather special. The Law Enforcement Hall's elders all had the power to punish disciples and elders. An insufferable culture had begun brewing there, and their way of speaking to others was loathsome. But because of their special power, the other elders had to endure it, which only stoked the flames of their arrogance. Although this mission was being led by Li Changfeng, Lu Minghan didn't respect him much. In his fury, he didn't care anymore. Fury brought more fury. Li Changfeng finally stopped restraining himself. He originally didn't like the people from the Law Enforcement Hall, especially not when they acted like this. Be suppressed. Li Changfeng's expression was dark as he formed new hand seals. The chains binding Long Chen and the others released and bound Lu Minghan. Chain after chain rapidly whirled around Lu Minghan. He was tightly bound into a ball. Li Changfeng, you dare to suppress me? Bound by these chains, he found his power suppressed, and he was unable to release any of his techniques. His furious roar was cut off suddenly as the chains began to move even faster. Even his head was bound, until he eventually became a chain cocoon. Li Changfeng was ashen. Lu Minghan was completely unreasonable. With a wave of his hand, the ball of chains that was Lu Minghan disappeared. Longchen, come with me. Long Chen and the others hadn't even reacted to what was happening when Li Changfeng extended a hand. Not allowing Long Chen to resist, the two of them disappeared. Long Chen was shocked. Although they were both kings, Li Changfeng was much stronger than Lu Minghan. He didn't have the slightest ability to resist him. He finally understood just how far he was from a king. The two of them appeared on a mountain that was tens of thousands of miles from the Xiantian Dao sect. He didn't know what technique Li Changfeng had used to bring him here. This trip to the eastern wasteland was handled poorly, sighed Li Changfeng. Senior, Longchen didn't know what to say. Li Changfeng waved his hand, saying, this matter isn't your fault. Of course, it can't be blamed on me either. Ugh, I'll have to go back and report on this mission now. However, before I go, let me warn you, Longchen. Being too stubborn will make you lose more. Whether you want to view me as an elder or just an old senior, it doesn't matter. After all, you are one of my Dao sect's disciples. I don't want to see your temper provoke a calamity. Although you had people come to support you this time, luck isn't dependable. You shouldn't always depend on such an ephemeral thing. Li Changfeng was giving him his heartfelt advice. He felt pity for him, but his temper also gave him a headache. Long Chen bitterly smiled. He knew Li Changfeng was being kind, but what other way was there? Whether he was low-key or wildly arrogant, he seemed doomed to have a bumpy life full of frustrations. Since the results either way were the same, why not do as he pleased? Why always concede and compromise? It was one thing if yielding would make him safe. Then he would yield. After all, he had people he cared about. But yielding didn't make things safer, it just made things worse. More people would think he was easy to bully, not hesitating to trample over him. So why yield then? I'll remember Senior's golden words of wisdom. Long Chen bowed slightly. Long Chen wasn't actually someone who didn't know how to repay kindness. He knew exactly who had been good to him. As for your secrets, I'm not interested in them, and the Tao sect isn't interested in them. But you have to remember, when 5 fingers extend, they aren't all united. In a sect with as many people as the Xiantian Tao sect, it's difficult to avoid some people who have wicked thoughts. So be careful in the future. Always try to leave some thoughts for the consequences instead of just losing your mind in a fit of rage, said Li Changfeng. Yes. Long Chen could only nod. Having completed the 4th star of the 9-star hegemon body art, his senses were only growing stronger. He was extremely sensitive to feelings of kindness or wickedness. No one could trick him. So from the start, Long Chen had known that Lu Minghan wasn't a good person. The only thing in his heart was greed, and so he wasn't courteous to him at all. There's still half a year until the branch sect's elites can gather for the head sect's disciple selection. Once you pass, you'll be able to cultivate in the head sect. The Central Plains is the true place for heavenly geniuses to cultivate. As for the Eastern Wasteland, you'll understand how insignificant it is in the future. Alright, people really do talk more as they get older. I have to return to the head sect to report on this matter. If there's anything you don't understand, you can go ask your sect master. Li Changfeng's figure suddenly vanished from Long Chen's sight. Long Chen didn't even know what direction he had gone. The Central Plains? Long Chen was a bit apprehensive and excited. He had long since heard that the Central Plains was a holy land for cultivation. Geniuses covered the land, and no matter how talented you were, you would be drowned by countless other geniuses. He also knew that the Skywood Divine Palace was in the Central Plains. In other words, only by going to the Central Plains could he see Chu Yao again. Thinking of Chu Yao, of their interactions in Phoenix Cry, a fire lit up in Long Chen's heart, as well as some grief. Chu Yao was a peaceful girl who didn't like fighting. She was easily satisfied. But to protect Long Chen, to make herself stronger, she had left the Eastern Wasteland and had gone to the incredibly distant Central Plains. All of that had been for him. However, Long Chen felt uneasy. His origins were a mystery, one that had been perplexing him for a long time. Instead of feeling like he was getting closer to the answer, as his cultivation base grew, all he felt was that this world grew vaster with him. Before he reached the peak of the martial path, he was not to investigate his origins. That was what that unknown servant had said before disappearing. Back then, Long Chen had thought that the servant should have been a Xiantian expert. But back then, he hadn't understood what a Tao transformation was. But now he knew. Only Celestials possessed the qualifications to do so, and they had to have at least reached the 4th rank. Transforming into the Tao required the assistance of spirit blood. The servant had turned himself into nothingness and severed all karma related to him, all to protect Long Chen. He shook his head, forcing out those unsteady thoughts. No matter how strong his enemies were, no matter how terrifying they were, there was no need to have so many misgivings since he had made his choice. Furthermore, once he went to the Central Plains, he wouldn't be alone. Chu Yao was there, and he had also sensed Yujichio's aura in the immemorial path. He was sure she would also go to the Central Plains. In fact, perhaps she was already there. Other than that, he thought of a certain person who liked to laugh and show off. That person's face was still a bit immature and baby-like. He was Emon Yen. According to his grandfather, Emon Yen would definitely become an amazing figure now that he was a celestial. He had to go to their ancestral land in the Central Plains to receive the inheritance. Back then, Emon Yen had said he would soar and reach the peak of the continent. Thinking of that, Long Chen felt a burst of warmth. He didn't just have enemies. He also had friends he could depend on. The thing that Long Chen found odd was that a person he had been expecting hadn't appeared. Where was Leng Yuan? She hadn't appeared during their attack against the Corrupt Path, and she also hadn't appeared when the Corrupt Path had attacked the Xiantian Dao sect. Had she already left the Eastern Wasteland? Or was she in seclusion? After thinking about it for a while, Long Chen decided to not bother with her. In any case, her target was him, not the others. There was nothing to be afraid of. Another matter that rested in his heart was the Eastern Wasteland Bell. He didn't know where it had run off to. If he had a chance, he would definitely get it to owe him another favor. Then he really would be unstoppable. Long Chen's thoughts were chaotic for a while as he thought of many things. Some things were exciting and some things were nerve-wracking. The Central Plains would be his bigger playing field. Long Chen suddenly thought of those 4 idiots that had undergone tribulation in the immemorial path. Perhaps he would be able to encounter them in the Central Plains. Fuck, there are really too many idiots. How am I supposed to be low-key? Am I supposed to just let them step all over me? Long Chen spat on the ground. The best way to handle these idiots was to viciously slap them in the face. Only once their faces swelled up to the same size as their asses would they remember their lessons. Although Li Changfeng had advised him kindly, Long Chen had his own experience. He decided to continue according to his own style. He returned to the Xiantian Dao sect and told Ouyang Chuyu that Li Changfeng had left. Ouyang Chuyu was currently infuriated. Li Changfeng had been enraged by Lu Mingan's actions and couldn't bring himself to see Ouyang Chuyu again. Although it hadn't been his fault, he was too embarrassed to see her. Big sister, I need to ask you a serious question. Long Chen suddenly thought of something. What is it? Ouyang Chuyu was a bit surprised. Just how did you dispatch those 3 old ghosts? Asked Long Chen. Long Chen knew that those 3 kings hadn't left kindly after not getting anything from him. He wanted to know what Li Changfeng had given them to have them leave. The matter's already passed, so don't bring it up again. As long as you're safe, it's fine. Money is well spent if it's used to avert a disaster. Ouyang Chuyu couldn't look Long Chen in the eyes. I knew that they would give you a vicious blow. Just how much did they take? Long Chen was speechless as he stared at Ouyang Chuyu. About everything. Ouyang Chuyu's expression was extremely unnatural. Everything? What does that mean? Everything in the storehouses, all the Yuan spirit stones used to strengthen the formation. What the fuck? Long Chen's eyes almost popped out of his head. That was too vicious. Long Chen, money can be earned if it's lost. Do you know what a calamity you provoked this time? Being able to spend this money to buy your life is amazing, said Ouyang Chu. In her opinion, as long as this money was spent to protect Long Chen, losing a fortune was fine. Furthermore, it wasn't as if she had control over this matter. It was all negotiated by Li Changfeng. In her opinion, this result was extremely satisfactory. If I had known this earlier, I would have had Guo Ran completely cripple those disciples, said Long Chen hatefully. In order to enrich the Xiantian Dao sect, he had given all the 2 great battle spoils to Ouyang Chuyu. But as a result, they had all been taken by those 3. Long Chen's heart was about to drip blood. Although he wasn't stingy, his battle spoils couldn't be given to just anyone, especially not his enemies. That was what made him furious. Alright, so your pocket is completely empty now. No wonder you're not busy reconstructing the building despite it being turned into this state. Long Chen was speechless. You rotten brat, I have no money, and you destroyed the palace. Are you trying to make me so poor I have to live outside? Raged Ouyang Chuyu. Even the representative mark of the Xiantian Dao sect had been destroyed, and she had no money to repair it. Don't worry, I'll just build you another. One that's even bigger and grander. It'll make the Xiantian Dao sect 10 times more amazing than before. Long Chen smiled. He had absolute confidence in these words. He had a mountain of treasure items, and there were quite a few weapons, medicinal pills, armor, and secret tomes that were useless to him. He was in the midst of figuring out how to handle those things. Big words. Reconstructing the Xiantian Dao sect requires an ocean's worth of material and people. I've sent an application for more money, but I don't know how long it will take for the first wave of money to arrive. The Xiantian Dao sect will probably be a pile of ruins for several years, sighed Ouyang Chuyu. Having stayed in the Xiantian Dao sect for so long, this place was her home. Anyone would feel the same if their home was ruined. Big sister, your spirit blood has been made up for, and you were originally a rank 3 celestial. You should be able to become a king soon, then you can join the head sect. Why stay here? Asked Long Chen. Ouyang Chuyu shook her head. You don't understand. I've been here for too long. My heart is here. Furthermore, I'm too old now. I don't have that vigor of youth, nor do I have the will to continuously advance. I'd rather stay here until I'm dead. What? Big sister, you look so young and beautiful. Do you still remember how I treated you like a little sister at first and almost seduced you? Laughed Long Chen. What? You even have interest in an old fossil like me? Laughed Ouyang Chuyu. Big sister isn't old. Cultivators live for countless years. Whether a person is old depends on their heart, said Long Chen. You want to have me and Wu Hin go with you to the head sect? You should give up on that thought. We don't want to have to worry about you any longer. We've both discussed it, and we're going to peacefully stay here. With two of us, we'll have company. As for going with you? We want to live for a few more years. Spare us. Ouyang Chuyu shook her head. In truth, Ouyang Chuyu cut him off, saying, Long Chen, we both understand you. We know you want what's best for us. But you have a fatal flaw, and we don't want to become your burdens. We'll be very safe here, and so that's basically helping you. Once you reach the peak of the martial path, if you still remember the two of us, you can come back. Then we'll profit from your prestige and enjoy what it feels like. But that's not now. Looking into Ouyang Chuyu's eyes, Long Chen could understand that Ouyang Chuyu and Shui Wuhin's decision was the smartest one. But he also didn't want to part with them. However, he could accept this proposal. While they were talking, a person came over to report that someone wanted to talk with Long Chen. Brother Wenlong, it's been a long time. In his own private room, Long Chen fiercely hugged Jing Wenlong, who he hadn't seen in a long time. Long Chen. I thought that you would start to suspect me since it took me so long to get here. It looks like I was worried for nothing, laughed Zheng Wenlong. As soon as Long Chen had returned to the Xiantian Dao sect, he had sent someone to notify Zheng Wenlong that he had some business to discuss. But Zheng Wenlong had only appeared now. Trusted people shouldn't be doubted, and suspicious people shouldn't be trusted. Since I've chosen to trust you, I'll trust you to the end. Sit, let's drink some tea. I have some big business to discuss with you. Long Chen smiled. The two of them Saturday. Zheng Wenlong opened his mouth first, excitedly saying, Long Chen, do you want to guess where I was these past few days? Long Chen was surprised. Where you were? Could it be, you were promoted? Yes, I was in the Central Plains. In just a few years, with my hard work, I've managed to defeat the disciples from the other regions and become an assistant guild leader within the Huayan sect. Although there are a total of 8 assistant guild leaders, I'm the youngest one in all of history. Zheng Wenlong was full of excitement and pride. This position had to be extremely important. So Brother Wenlong managed to reach the Central Plains first. Here, let your brother celebrate for you. I have some wine here. Long Chen took out a jar. No, my Huayan sect's disciples aren't allowed to drink wine. We have to maintain clear heads, said Zheng Wenlong. Long Chen didn't force him. Using tea as wine, they toasted. Long Chen said, Your promotion is great news to me. It just so happens that the business I have for you is big. Zheng Wenlong laughed. I know. When I returned, someone told me what happened. I know about everything, and I have to say, you really are vicious, Long Chen. You're even more vicious than last time in the Jioli's secret realm. Speak, what is it that you need? Do you need my help getting rid of some corrupt weapons? Are you looking for short-term profit, long-term profit? His last question was in regards to how urgently he needed the money. If it was urgent, he could immediately start selling them, lowering the profit in exchange for speed. But if it wasn't urgent, he could sell them over several months, or even several years. I don't have time to care about those things. If you're interested, just give me an all-inclusive deal, and then you can slowly sell them off for more personal profit, said Long Chen. He tossed Zheng Wenlong a ring. Although he had long since been prepared, when he saw the items inside the spatial ring, he was still shocked. There were hundreds of treasure items inside, and all of them were above average. Various medicinal pills, secret tomes, and spiritual items packed inside it. Just estimating their value would take several days. Brother Long Chen, you really are my lucky star. I only just got promoted, and you're sending me such huge business, exclaimed Zheng Wenlong. This is just part of it. I want enough money to reconstruct the Xiantian Dao sect, and I also have some other treasures I want you to appraise and give me an estimate. I'm not prepared to take out these treasures right now, but I need to know if there's a marketplace for them. Also, help me stay on the lookout for some rare and strange treasures. Long Chen took out 1 drop of divine mortal molting elixir, 1 drop of 10,000 spirit blood, and 1 yuan spirit stone. Zheng Wenlong's eyes almost popped out. Those 3 were priceless treasures. Each one of them was enough to cause a huge disturbance. Thank you. Zheng Wenlong gratefully looked at Long Chen. The fact that he had brought out these 3 things for him to see meant he had absolute trust in him. If news of these 3 things spread, it would bring countless killers to him. But Long Chen hadn't hesitated to show him. These 3 are peak treasures that people can't buy no matter how much money they have. So I can't give you real value for them. But since you aren't in a hurry, I'll investigate once I go back and try to get an accurate estimate. I'll also go through the recent auction news and see if there's anything you're interested in. As long as you say the word, I'll find people to get it for you. As for the money you urgently need, I have the authority to lend you plenty of spirit stones. Even if you wanted to expand the Shantian Dao sect by 10 times, it should be enough. Zheng Wenlong patted his chest confidently. People always said that rich people sounded assertive. Now, Zheng Wenlong's imposing attitude was becoming more and more amazing. The 2 of them had been cooperating for a long time, so they figured things out in just a few sentences. Zheng Wenlong left full of excitement, and Long Chen also felt a weight lift off his shoulders. It went without saying that Zheng Wenlong's efficiency was astonishing. On just the 2nd day, he sent him 30 million high-grade spirit stones. That was equivalent to 3 billion middle-grade spirit stones. This clearly showed the level of Zheng Wenlong's position. High-grade spirit stones were things only experts above Xiantian could absorb. Although they couldn't compare to Yuan spirit stones, they were still rare items on the Martial Heaven continent. With this money, Ouyang Chu finally smiled and the haze from the past few days blew away. She praised Long Chen for his abilities. These 30 million high-grade spirit stones immediately turned Ouyang Chu into a wealthy and imposing sect master. She immediately sent out a call for people. The sects that had participated in the battle against the corrupt path rushed over, while the larger sects also sent out people. Reconstructing the Shantian Dao sect required a huge amount of manpower in addition to resources. After sending him 30 million high-grade spirit stones, Zheng Wenlong then sent him a huge mass of material. There was enough material to fill up half the Shantian Dao sect. Long Chen had to prostrate himself in admiration toward Zheng Wenlong. He not only sent resources, but he also sent capable craftsmen. They were the highest-level craftsmen in the Eastern Wasteland, so now Ouyang Chu didn't need to worry about that. Ouyang Chu didn't stand on courtesy when she saw how rich Long Chen had become. In any case, the trouble had been caused by him, and Long Chen had promised to reconstruct the Shantian Dao sect to 10 times its previous size. Ouyang Chu and Shui Wuhan worked through the night designing and planning the new construction. Discussing it with the craftsmen, they quickly settled on the final details. The very next day, they got to work. But just as the construction was underway, an unexpected event occurred. Countless righteous experts were making their way over. With the ending of the remote Heaven Gang, the Eastern Wasteland's righteous path was completely dominated by the Shantian Dao sect. Since they were in the midst of reconstruction, it was the perfect time to suck up. Millions of righteous experts worked for free for them. The construction became much easier thanks to that. They had money, material, craftsmen, and workers. Ouyang Chu and Shui Wuhan excitedly stared at the diagram of the construction as they constantly directed people. It was like they had returned to their youth and were personally constructing a new home for themselves. Their laughter didn't pause at all during this time. Seeing the 2 of them working so passionately, Long Chen didn't bother them. He brought the Dragonblood Legion to a secluded mountain, and after excavating a hole, they began cultivating. The Dragonblood warriors had just advanced to see expansion. After experiencing consecutive large battles, their auras had stabilized firmly. Long Chen directly used Yuan spirit stones to form a formation, and he took out the immemorial altar lamp. The Eastern Wasteland Bell had taught him how to use it. It wasn't an offensive weapon, but a priceless treasure used to assist cultivation. It contained the blessing of supreme experts from the ancient era. The flame inside could draw out the heavenly Taos and shine upon a person's heart, allowing them to enter a perfect meditative state where they felt immeasurably closer to the heavenly Taos. When people normally cultivated, they first needed to expel random thoughts and enter a meditative state. Once their minds were empty, they would attempt to connect to the heavenly Taos. This was extremely difficult, and the effect was different for every person. Sea expansion was a realm where the difference in cultivation speed was the greatest. By this realm, cultivators had to have already begun to touch heaven and earth's laws. That made sea expansion an extremely important foundational realm. It wasn't as simple as simply expanding the sea. But with the immemorial altar lamp, under its light, everyone felt warm and relaxed. It was like they had returned to a state of fetuses within their mother's wombs. Their spiritual yuan naturally circulated. Even without meticulously doing anything, they felt the lamp guiding them to an indescribably miraculous state. Long Chen was shocked to see that everyone's qi seas were slowly surging. They were undergoing a slow, second expansion. Even without pills, they can expand their seas a second time? It's no wonder the Eastern Wasteland Bell said that the immemorial altar lamp is amazing. But Long Chen found that it had no effect on him, nor Wild. He was just sleeping, an innocent smile on his face. "Wild, how about you go play? Remember the landmarks, so you don't get lost," said Long Chen upon seeing how bored Wild was. After so many battles, Wild had used up all his rations. The best thing for him was to go out and get more. However, although Wild promised he wouldn't get lost, Long Chen still gave him a special talisman. Through that talisman, Long Chen could sense his general location. Although it couldn't give him a specific location, its sensing distance was extremely great. It would be easy to find him if he got lost. After handling Wild, Long Chen decided to act as a protector over everyone as they cultivated. He also began studying the secret part of Split the Heavens that Feng Xinglia had taught him. Although he could use the third form of Split the Heavens, in truth, he didn't feel like its effect was too great without having condensed the divine runes. Back when he had used it against Lu Minghan, the only reason Long Chen could have injured him was because Lu Minghan had been careless. If it had been Feng Xinglia using the third form of Split the Heavens back then even if Lu Minghan had been completely prepared, he probably would have died. What profound principles! Each rune contains a profound connection to each other. Is a human really capable of coming up with something like this? Long Chen sighed inside. He had only just begun studying the first 9 runes, but he was instantly drawn into the intricate principles within them. Each one of them represented a different law, a different meaning. As for what their meanings were, Feng Xinglia had directly told him not to ask, because he also didn't know. In any case, Feng Xinglia just cultivated it according to the instruction of the old man from the heaven-splitting battle sect. But when Long Chen looked at these divine runes, he seemed to understand a kind of principle. It felt like he understood what they meant, but when he carefully thought about it, he couldn't figure it out. The club beats the tiger eats the chicken eats the insect eats the club. Each complements each other, but they also counter each other. Long Chen focused, circulating his spiritual yuan through the first 9 acupuncture points of Split the Heavens. Within each acupuncture point, he left behind a spiritual yuan cyclone. At the center of each cyclone, he left a strand of divine sense. Each strand of it contained a different kind of energy. The heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples found it incredibly difficult to do so. This was like planting a seed within the 9 acupuncture points, with the spiritual yuan as the fertilizer and the divine sense as the spiritual seed. Each seed contained the embryonic form of the divine rune. It was a slow process, almost a bit like incubating an egg. Due to cultivating the heaven-splitting battle sect's cultivation technique, their disciples didn't have a very strong spiritual strength. So controlling it in this manner was incredibly difficult. But Long Chen finished this first step in an instant. All he needed to do was awaken the divine runes with his spiritual strength. But this process was complicated, as it wasn't just one divine rune at a time, but all 9. He had to split his spiritual strength into 9 portions to nourish them at the same time. Furthermore, he had to split his spiritual strength evenly so they grew at the same pace. If they became imbalanced, they would essentially be ruined. If that happened, he would have to erase them and restart. Due to his powerful spiritual strength, he also had great control over it. The 9 embryonic forms quickly formed within his acupuncture points and began to grow. They became clearer and clearer. When the 9 divine runes fully appeared, Long Chen's expression suddenly turned grave. He softly chanted, "To split the heavens of the universe, my soul energy condenses. Split the heavens divine runes, appear." This was a mnemonic Feng Xinglie had taught him. This was his first time chanting it, and he felt like it sounded nonsensical. But after a while, he could feel a mysterious kind of energy within the world. This energy was formless and invisible, but he could sense it. The 9 divine runes in his acupuncture points lit up as if they were coming alive. They began to slowly revolve. Each divine rune seemed to possess its own life and will. They were connected to his soul, so it was like 9 newly born babies starting to become active. Does this mean there really are God's blessings in this world? Long Chen's heart pounded wildly as he examined the movements of the 9 runes. This energy wasn't his. After chanting the mnemonic, that mysterious energy had helped him fully activate the spirit of the 9 runes. When Feng Xinglie had explained the activation of the rune spirits, he had explained it vaguely, merely saying that he would understand when the time came. Now he finally did understand. This kind of thing couldn't be described with words. Having succeeded in condensing the divine runes, Long Chen's confidence rose. It had been extremely easy, and he was just about to start condensing the next 9 when a disciple suddenly came over to report that someone was looking for him. Xiaoqian. Although she wore a white veil, that pair of beautiful eyes could steal a person's soul. With that lithe figure that seemed to have come out of a painting, who else could it be but Yu Xiaoqian? Long Chen was delighted and surprised. "Long Chen, this is Aunt Yu." Yu Xiaoqian was also delighted to see Long Chen. But she first politely introduced a woman beside her. This woman appeared to be in her late 20s. Tall and with a high bun, she wore majestic robes that gave her an indescribable grace. "Junior Long Chen greets Aunt Yu." Long Chen hastily bowed. It seemed this was Yu Xiaoqian's family elder, so he had to be careful. "You are Long Chen? As expected, you have some skills. No wonder my family's sacred daughter would be seduced." Aunt Yu laughed without the slightest arrogance, seeming extremely satisfied with Long Chen. "Aunt Yu, Yu Xiaoqian turned red, clearly not having expected her to be so direct. "Hee, Aunt Yu overpraises me. Junior, I dare not accept such praise." In Long Chen's excitement, he almost called himself junior brother. That would be too embarrassing. Aunt Yu said, "There's no need to be embarrassed. I'm not going to butt into the affairs of youngsters. Long Chen, Yu Xiaoqian praised you into the heavens within the clan. I'm just here to help her seal the deal. Aunt Yu, if you don't stop, I'll..." Yu Xiaoqian's face was too thin compared to Long Chen. She couldn't bear it. "All right, fine. Then let's get to the point." Aunt Yu stopped teasing Yu Xiaoqian. She waved her hand, and Long Chen felt heaven and earth twist. An unknown energy separated them from the rest of the world. Long Chen was shocked. Just what level of expert was this Aunt Yu? How could she be so terrifying? Just what energy was this? It wasn't teleportation. They seemed to be within the chaotic flow of space, and he was unable to see anything outside. It was just the 3 of them within this strange space. "Long Chen, I represent the original devil race in expressing our sincere thanks." Aunt Yu bowed deeply toward him. Long Chen hastily bowed back, saying, "Aunt Yu, I can't accept such a thing." "You can. Our original devil race owes you far too much. To tell you the truth, the original devil race has currently been forced to the brink of death. If there still wasn't a change, we really might have ended up exterminated," sighed Aunt Yu. Long Chen shook his head. "The only reason I did what I did was for myself. Our cooperation is mutually beneficial, so there's no debt to owe." Aunt Yu smiled slightly. "Xiaoqian has told me about your matters. I came over this time to see if you needed any help with anything. If you have any troubles you can't resolve, I can help you. Long Chen's heart shook. He knew she meant that if he had any opponents he couldn't handle, she could help him. I don't have any right now, but I definitely will in the future. I'm very confident in my ability to cause trouble. Long Chen patted his chest confidently. Did you bring the list? We did, but there's a lot on it, said Yu Shaoqian awkwardly. The skyscraping world's resources were limited, and they were lacking a great deal. Although this list only contained the things they urgently needed, there were hundreds of them on it. That made Yu Shaoqian feel uneasy. Long Chen looked over the list and saw the majority of them were medicinal pills. He couldn't help but ask, the original devil race doesn't have any medicinal pills? Yes. That's why medicinal pills are the things we need urgently. Many people have been stuck at bottlenecks for too long without being able to break through. There are also some who ended up with problems while advancing and left flaws on their foundations. If those flaws aren't repaired, it will gravely affect their future advancements, said Yu Shaoqian worriedly. This matter was incredibly important to the original devil race. Medicinal pills in general were extremely important to cultivators. Otherwise, Pill Valley wouldn't possess such a high position. The entire cultivation world depended on them. Long Chen, although it's a bit much, Yu Shaoqian sobbed. Only once she had gone back to get this list did she learn a few secrets. The original devil race had too many people, and because they didn't have medicinal pills to assist them, problems would occasionally occur in people's cultivation. Those people would be tormented by pain all day, and some even became bedeviled and needed to be sealed. She hadn't known about that last time, but when she brought back quite a few medicinal pills, the entire original devil race had celebrated. Only then had she known how much pain the original devil race had been in. Leave it to me. Medicinal pills aren't a problem for me, said Long Chen. Thank you. Yu Shaoqian couldn't help being surprised by how confident he was. Hearing his promise, she was relieved. Right now, she understood what kind of person Long Chen was. He never promised anything he wasn't assured of. However, the quantity is too great. I'll need some time, said Long Chen. No problem, no problem. We'll just wait, said Yu Shaoqian hastily. Long Chen pondered it for a moment. How about this? Let's first handle the urgent cases. Right now, the Xiantiandao sect has had a falling out with Pill Valley, so buying medicinal pills from them would be difficult. But I have some back channels. Yu Shaoqian and Aunt Yu's expressions changed slightly upon hearing that the Xiantiandao sect had had a falling out with Pill Valley. They both knew medicinal pills were provided by Pill Valley. What back channels? Asked Yu Shaoqian. I'll go get some healing medicinal pills from the Huayan sect and buy a few more from other sections. Those pills will be for those with the worst problems. Then I'll cooperate with the Huayan sect. I'll give them pill formulas and have them refine a huge amount of healing pills. Once all your people are better, they can then refine other pills for you, such as those for cultivation. The Eastern Wasteland is basically dominated by the Xiantiandao sect now. The corrupt path is heavily injured, and the ancient races don't dare to make a move. During this time, you can establish a secret base. On the surface, you'll be engaging in some minor business, but in reality, I'll have the Xiantiandao sect and Huayan sect open back channels for you. With the two of them supporting you, no one will dare to provoke you. It would be best if your business involves rare things that few others are involved in. The fewer your customers, the better. It would also be best if your business is the kind that only reveals itself every few years. You understand what I'm saying, right? Said Long Chen. I understand. Aunt Yu nodded. Before coming, she and Yu Shaoqian had been a bit nervous, as this matter involved the future of the entire original devil race. But this quick analysis of Long Chen's easily resolved the problems that had been crushing down upon her like a mountain. They were both delighted. Furthermore, Long Chen talked like they were one family, making them feel even closer. We shouldn't delay things. Let's split up. I'll go notify the Huayan sect, and on the way, I'll use the sect master's name to gather medicinal pills. Aunt Yu, you go and find a suitable city. Buy a plot of land and establish a stronghold. Also have a few of your race's clever people come to manage it. If you don't have anything to do, you should also temporarily oversee it just to be safe, said Long Chen. Aunt Yu was surprised by how completely Long Chen handled things. She couldn't help but feel a kind of admiration. With him present, she no longer had to worry about anything. I'll accompany Long Chen here. Aunt Yu, you can go first, said Yu Xiaoqian. But looking at Aunt Yu's teasing smile, she blushed. I'm just trying to support Long Chen. Even once Aunt Yu left, Yu Xiaoqian continued blushing. Long Chen took a deep breath and brought her into the mountain cave. It was time to face what he had to face. This must be Junior's sister Xiaoqian, right? Long Chen always talks about you. When he returned to the cave, he saw that Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er were already awake and guarding the entrance for everyone else. Meng Qi was the first to speak. I'm Xiaoqian. Greetings, big sisters, said Yu Xiaoqian nervously. She hastily bowed toward the two of them. Good sister. Let's sit and talk. Long Chen, there's nothing here for you, so you can scram. Don't eavesdrop on us, sisters. Tang Wan'er glared at Long Chen. Being glared at by Tang Wan'er, Long Chen's worried heart instantly relaxed. He felt incredibly grateful to Meng Qi. He knew that Meng Qi had long since explained things to Tang Wan'er. Tang Wan'er was naturally a jealous person, but as long as she didn't explode at the start, it meant things were going very smoothly. Thinking of when they could all finally be together, his expression became absent-minded. Wipe away your saliva and go. We sisters have important things to discuss, said Meng Qi. She understood Long Chen far too well, and she pushed him off. Long Chen was incredibly excited. A weight that had been resting on him was finally lifted, and he felt full of energy. He gathered all the workers' sect leaders and gave them a list of medicinal pills he urgently needed. Seeing Long Chen converse with them, those sect leaders were incredibly excited. They all ordered disciples to go back to their sects and bring all their stores of those medicinal pills. Their enthusiasm was at a level that shocked Long Chen, and their efficiency made him speechless. On the very next day, countless pills appeared in front of him. Long Chen directly gave them 3 times the money that Pill Valley would sell them at. Although quite a few said that they didn't want his money, Long Chen still gave it to them. He didn't like owing favors. Half a day later, Aunt Yu returned here. She was also extremely efficient. The stronghold was already established and only required her to send some people to run it. When Long Chen gave her a huge pile of medicinal pills, she was indescribably grateful. She directly left for the skyscraping world. Saving her people was the most pressing thing. After sending off Aunt Yu, Long Chen once more had a meeting with Zheng Wenlong. When he mentioned he wanted to cooperate in terms of alchemy, Zheng Wenlong became ecstatic. The profit from medicinal pills was the greatest in this world. Long Chen gave Zheng Wenlong over 10 medicinal pill formulas in one go. They were all pills that didn't exist in the outside world. Pill Valley had never sold them, and their medicinal effect was extremely great. Zheng Wenlong almost fainted from joy. Last time he had cooperated with Long Chen like this, he had earned a hefty sum. Even now, money was flowing into his pockets. Armed with these new medicinal pills, Zheng Wenlong promised to properly use them and give a fierce slap to Pill Valley's face. The matter with Zheng Wenlong was settled. The pill recipes Long Chen gave him were all 7th and 8th tier, as well as a few peak 6th tier ones. Each one of them was at least 30% more effective than similar pills sold by Pill Valley. They would definitely cause a blow to Pill Valley once they entered the marketplace. In any case, the Huayan sect was already Pill Valley's rival, so they weren't afraid of its reprisal. This was a mutually beneficial arrangement, as Long Chen needed the Huayan sect to refine a huge amount of those pills. On his own, the amount of pills he could refine was limited. He had already handed off a portion of the medicinal pills the Dragon Blood Legion required to Zheng Wenlong to handle. Stealthily returning to the cave, Long Chen didn't directly walk in. From a distance, he heard tinkling bell-like laughter. Only then did he dare to enter. But when he heard what they were saying, he immediately wanted to turn and flee. You two don't know, but back then, Long Chen was absolutely evil. Right in front of me, he peed on someone else. Oh, Long Chen, you've come just in time. Sister Xiaoqian might not believe me, so why don't you personally explain what you did? Tang Wan'er's sharp eyes instantly saw Long Chen, who was in the midst of trying to sneakily slip away. The three of them had been chatting this entire time. They had been talking about Long Chen, and it was unknown who started it, but they began to talk about his embarrassing moments. Tang Wanner had immediately thought of when she had first encountered Long Chen. With all three of them turning to look at him, Long Chen had an urge to bury himself. Even if his face was thicker than a city wall, he felt a burning sensation on it. What nonsense! That was clearly a tactic to drown my enemies, raged Long Chen. Back then, when he had just entered the territory of the Xiantian monastery, a fellow had found him displeasing and wanted to kick him aside. As a result, Long Chen had thrown him into the river. That person had refused to take it lying down, and he began to furiously curse him. Long Chen had then used his drowning tactic against the fellow, displaying it in a grand and open manner. Tang Wanner had been flying over and had criticized him for being a rogue. That was the first time they had met. Now that it was mentioned again, Long Chen felt embarrassed. Looking at Long Chen's red face, the three women erupted in laughter. This expression of Long Chen's was too rare. Tisi, keep laughing. Sooner or later, you'll all be grabbing the bed rails and biting the sheets, Long Chen thought to himself. Just thinking about it made his heart beat faster. Right now, Yu Shaoqian wasn't wearing her veil, and the three of them were gathered together like flowers in bloom. They were all different kinds of beauty that made his heart itch. Hey, what's the point in just laughing? Let's play a game, Long Chen laughed sinisterly. What game? Pearl in the dark, laughed Long Chen, his eyes shining. Pearl in the dark? The name's a bit interesting. How do you play? Tang Wanner didn't notice that Meng Qi had closed her mouth. Hee, I'll place a pearl on your collar and then blindfold myself. Then you can't move, and we see how long it takes me to find the pearl, laughed Long Chen. What's so fun about that? You pervert, raged Tang Wanner. She saw Long Chen's gaze roving around her body as if looking for a place to search. Alright, don't mess around anymore. Long Chen, come and sit. It's rare for us all to have time like this, said Meng Qi. Long Chen sighed with relief inside. Tang Wanner didn't show any irritation at Yu Shaoqian. In fact, the two of them were chatting quite happily. That made him cast a grateful glance at Meng Qi. Then she gave him a warm smile that caused his heart to shake. He suddenly thought of his bath with her in the spirit world. Every inch of her body looked like it had been crafted by a god. Thinking of that moving feeling and her bashful gaze, it unconsciously began to affect him. Looking at Long Chen's fiery gaze, Meng Qi blushed. She understood Long Chen far too well, and she knew exactly what he was thinking. Long Chen, tell us a story, said Tang Wanner suddenly. No, said Long Chen. Scoundrel, are you looking for a beating? Tang Wanner raised her small fists menacingly. Helplessly, Long Chen said, Fine, you want a story? Once, there was a eunuch. Long Chen suddenly refused to keep going. Tang Wanner didn't know if she was being conned, so she asked, and then? Long Chen sighed, an expression of grief on his face. With a quiet, sad voice, he said, and then, there's nothing. Tang Wanner raged. What kind of story was this? There was nothing to it. Meng Qi scolded him, rogue. Yu Shaoqian also came to a comprehension with Meng Qi's scolding. Pervert. Tang Wanner was confused for a long while before she finally understood his words. Her fists rained down on him. After a brief scuffle, they stopped being so constrained. Yu Shaoqian asked about the matter with the medicinal pills, and he explained what had happened, allowing her to fully relax. During the next few days, Long Chen also cultivated, condensing the Split the Heavens divine runes. He condensed 27 of them easily. In other words, he had condensed all the runes for the third form of Split the Heavens. But when he tried to condense the fourth form's runes, he felt a burst of pain at his acupuncture points and gave up. If he forced it, there was the danger of his acupuncture points rupturing. He hadn't dared to keep going. It was no wonder Feng Xinglia had said not to try using the fourth form without reaching foundation forging first. But even so, he had the first 27 runes condensed. Now he just needed to nourish them. As an alchemist, Long Chen had special means to do so. He could use medicinal pills to allow those runes to absorb energy faster. However, it was still an extremely slow process. Fortunately, he wasn't in a hurry right now and devoted a great deal of time to cultivating. During this time, with the assistance of the immemorial altar lamp, the Dragon Blood Legion had expanded their seas to a peak. Each one of them now had a chi sea of 3,000 miles. Furthermore, their cultivation bases also rapidly advanced dozens of times faster than going all-out cultivating with medicinal pills. With the immemorial altar lamp, they didn't need to bitterly cultivate. Each day, it felt like they were sleeping as they entered a profound state. In that state, their cultivation bases progressed at astounding speeds without causing their foundations to become unsteady. Furthermore, it also advanced their mental realms. In that dreamlike state, they comprehended many things they hadn't even thought about before. While the Dragon Blood Legion cultivated blissfully, the Shen-Tian-Dao sect was undergoing daily change. Millions of experts were working day and night, and huge constructions rose into the sky one by one. They were built so fast that people found it unreal. Day by day, time flowed on. After 5 whole months, Long Chen and the others all came out of seclusion. They had no choice but to come out as the Shen-Tian-Dao sect's construction had been completed. Now, the Shen-Tian-Dao sect was 10 times grander than before. Its palace soared into the clouds, appearing luxurious, grand, and imposing. The plaza was made of all new material, and there was a formation supporting it. The patriarch's statue had also been reconstructed, shining brightly like a mirror. The entire Shen-Tian-Dao sect had changed, giving the air of feeling of energy. With the construction finally over, today was a celebration. The Shen-Tian-Dao sect was filled with tables. The fine wine and delicacies had long since been prepared. When Long Chen and the others appeared, it caused an uproar. Everyone saw that after 5 months, the Dragon Blood warriors had gone from early sea expansion to mid-sea expansion. Gu Yang, Guoran, and the other captain-level experts had even reached the 7th heaven stage. They were at late sea expansion. It had only been 5 months. This cultivation speed was absolutely shocking. Looking at them, even foundation forging experts had to sigh emotionally. This world would be theirs in the future. Long Chen finally understood why the immemorial altar lamp was an exceedingly precious existence even in the ancient era. Its ability to assist cultivation was truly heaven-defying. Everyone's cultivation bases had soared during this time. In the first month, they had all reached the 3rd heaven stage. Then their cultivation speeds had begun to slow down. But that was only in comparison to their previous speed. Compared to the outside world's cultivation speed, it was still shocking. Long Chen had also found some rules about the immemorial altar lamp. It also allowed people to establish their foundation quickly, letting their foundation become flawless. But as their cultivation bases grew, the effect lessened. In truth, this was intentionally done by the immemorial altar lamp. At the beginning, Long Chen hadn't understood. But then he had realized that the immemorial altar lamp was different from ordinary treasures. It had its own rules. The higher the realm, the more it would withdraw its blessings. It had those using it go out and comprehend some things on their own. Otherwise, they would form a dependence on it. If people formed a dependence on it, then that wouldn't be helping but ruining their futures. Forming a dependence would be a destructive blow to a cultivator, which was why it pulled back its blessings. This was also one of the reasons it was such an amazing treasure in the ancient era. It was most useful in the early stage of a realm. In the middle stage, its blessings would lessen, and by the late stage, it essentially had no effect. During the celebration, Long Chen saw Feng Yin and the others that had fought with him. They laughed and drank until they were dizzy. The celebration lasted for 7 days and 7 nights. At this point, the Shen-Tian-Dao sect was the overlord of the eastern wasteland. No one could resist them. Once the celebration was over, the various sects left. Through this interaction, they were put at ease by the Shen-Tian-Dao sect's attitude. They all received considerable payments for their work. Once all the guests had left, the Shen-Tian-Dao sect's people continued celebrating for 3 days. The Shen-Tian-Dao sect had now reached an unprecedented state of unity. They were all aligned, mentally and physically. Several days later, at dusk, a large flying boat slowly descended upon them. Here, Long Chen says that what he did was drowning of the 7 armies. In Romance of the 3 Kingdoms, a general flooded the Han River, drowning his enemies. When Tang Wan'er asks, and then, the literal meaning is down below. Tang Wan'er, and down below? Long Chen, down below, there's nothing. When the flying boat arrived above the Xintian Dao sect, Ouyang Chuyu hastily went out to greet it. The flying boat had a flag waving to indicate its affiliation, the Xintian Dao sect. The Xintian Dao sect it indicated was not the branch sect within the eastern wasteland. It was the head Xintian Dao sect located in the Central Plains. Every 10 years, the head sect would send flying boats to the branch sects to bring disciples who met the qualifications back to the head sect. Those disciples all had to have reached sea expansion, and they needed to be no older than 50. Ouyang Chuyu, leader of the Eastern Wastelands branch sect, greets senior from the head sect. Ouyang Chuyu hastily bowed. Long Chen and the others had no choice but to follow. But Long Chen merely bent his waist slightly to indicate that he was bowing. In reality, Long Chen looked down on this move. The flying boat took a full incense stick's time to descend. The people on it refused to show themselves, intentionally waiting for all the Xintian Dao sect's disciples to gather and bow to them. That was irritating to him. Stairs descended from the flying boat. A group of people walked down, all their auras vast like a sea. The person at the front was a middle-aged man with a stern face. His long hair fell to the back of his head, and his brows were raised, giving off a strict feeling. "Is everything prepared?" he asked Ouyang Chuyu. Reporting to senior, "Everything is prepared." This time, the Eastern Wastelands branch sect has a total of 417 people who qualified to be sent to the Central Plains to take the test, answered Ouyang Chuyu. The truth was that other than the Dragonblood Legion, there were few that met the qualifications. Amongst those remaining people, some were disciples sent from other sections. Their sects had entrusted them to the Xintian Dao sect, as their own sects didn't have the power to properly raise them. If they were sent to the Xintian Dao sect, they could go to the Central Plains. These sects felt that holding back their disciples was worse than letting them go to another sect. If their disciples could take root in the Central Plains and gain some skills, when the time came, they might come back and bring them over to the Central Plains as well or improve their original sect. This was emotional persuasion. If it paid off, then it would pay off extremely well. Those disciples that were sent off might leave their family or partners back in the sect. They were like a kite string connected to them, making it so when they did gain power, they wouldn't forget to repay their original sect. In accordance with the rules, we will leave in 3 days to give the disciples time to say goodbye to their friends and family. "Arrange a residence for us," said the middle-aged man. His voice wasn't loud, but it was filled with unquestionable dignity. Yes, the arrangements have long since been prepared. As Ouyang Chuyu spoke, Sea Expansion elders came forward to lead them away. A total of 38 people came off the boat. Only that middle-aged man's aura was reserved so that no one could tell his cultivation base. However, the pressure he gave off made it unquestionable that he had to be a terrifying king. The others who came off the boat were all young disciples. Their cultivation bases were all at foundation forging, but their auras were extremely condensed. Just like the middle-aged man, they gave off an immense pressure. Once they had left, Guoran speechlessly said, "They really know how to be posers. We came out to greet them, but they didn't even glance at us." Long Chen nodded. Ouyang Chuyu and Xue Wuhan, along with the other higher-ups, had left with that middle-aged man's group. The disciples remaining didn't quite know what to do. "Let's scatter." Long Chen waved his hand, telling the disciples to go do whatever they were doing before. This had been nothing more than a show. "Long Chen, I have to leave." Once they returned, Yu Shaoqian reluctantly opened her mouth. "Sister Shaoqian, you're not going to stay with us?" Tang Wan'er grabbed Yu Shaoqian's hand. "Aunt, you said I can't go with Long Chen to the Central Plains," said Yu Shaoqian. "Why not?" "Long Chen, go ask Aunt Yu to have Shaoqian accompany us," said Tang Wan'er. During this time, Tang Wan'er had surprisingly begun to stick up for Yu Shaoqian, because Yu Shaoqian was younger than her and naturally naive. Tang Wanner treated her as a little sister that needed protecting. When she was with Meng Qi, she felt herself to not be sensible or mature enough. But with Yu Shaoqian, she felt like she had a true partner, and the two of them had been chattering incessantly this entire time. It's not a good time for Shaoqian to accompany us to the Central Plains. Long Chen shook his head. Yu Shaoqian began to cry, causing Tang Wanner to be infuriated. You scoundrel Long Chen, what are you talking about? Sister Wan, don't make things hard on Long Chen. The Central Plains are where the world's strongest experts reside. It's not a good idea for me to go with you there, said Yu Shaoqian. Long Chen was helpless. There was no way around this, as there were just too many experts in the Central Plains. According to Aunt Yu, some were approaching the level of gods. If Yu Shaoqian went, it would be all too easy for her identity to be exposed. Don't worry, once I establish myself in the Central Plains and build up a new stronghold, we can still be together, comforted Long Chen as he held Yu Shaoqian's hand. I know. I don't want to part, said Yu Shaoqian. Don't worry, it won't be too long. We'll quickly meet again. There are still many things for you to handle here in the Eastern Wasteland, but I've already told Jing Wenlong to send all the medicinal pills to your new stronghold. Just get through this hard time. Zheng Wenlong was already in motion, gathering hordes of alchemists and teaching them the new pill formulas. He had done repeated tests with the pill formulas and had confirmed that there were no problems with them. He was already starting to refine them in bulk. It was the same as the bone-tempering pills. Long Chen would first get a bulk order of them, and only then would they be sold on the market. Right now, Long Chen was in a race against the clock. The matter of the medicinal pills was now no longer as desperate as 5 months ago, as a huge number of medicinal pills had reached the original devil race's disciples. With new cultivation resources, those disciples broke through bottlenecks, delighting the entire original devil race. In front of everyone's unwilling gazes, Yu Shaoqian left. But this parting was temporary. The Eastern Wasteland was currently enjoying an unprecedented level of peace. Everything was extremely calm. The corrupt path, the ancient races, and the ancient family alliances matters had all been handled. Although the Eastern Wasteland's corrupt path had taken heavy losses, the righteous path didn't move to completely exterminate them. They left this leeway, so the corrupt path also didn't dare to commit a huge taboo and send their experts to the Eastern Wasteland. Perhaps in the righteous and corrupt path's higher-ups' eyes, the fight in the Eastern Wasteland was nothing more than a game. The temporary win was just that, temporary. However, the corrupt path truly did hate Long Chen to the bone now. This time, he had slapped them in the face extremely viciously, and more than once at that. The ancient races and ancient family alliance were compensated, and so they had won back some face. But Long Chen was sure that once he arrived in the Central Plains, things would not be very peaceful. As for the Bloodkill Hall, he had always been on guard against them, but he had heard that the head Ling Yunzi had cut off had been sent back to the head Xiantiandao sect. The Xiantiandao sect had sent the Bloodkill Hall a warning, but as for what the result was, none of them knew. To sum it up, Long Chen was enjoying a rare moment of peace in the Eastern Wasteland. But once he entered the Central Plains, that peace wouldn't necessarily continue. Furthermore, the Central Plains was packed with many geniuses, and Long Chen didn't like his odds of continuing this peace. Time truly passed quickly. The third day arrived in what felt like the blink of an eye. In front of Ouyang Qiuyu and Shui Wuhan's reluctant gazes, Long Chen stepped onto the flying boat with everyone else. The flying boat began to shine, and then instantly disappeared from the Xiantiandao sect's sight. Everyone felt a feeling of loss. That troublemaker has finally left. Ouyang Qiuyu didn't feel the slightest relief as she watched the flying boat depart. Instead, she felt mournful. That's right. He can finally cause trouble for others. We're free. Shui Wuhan smiled, but tears streamed down her face. Ever since knowing Long Chen, she had viewed him as a little brother. He had never treated her as a monastery head, and she had never treated him as a disciple. But now that he had left for a place full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers like the Central Plains, with his temperament, he might never come back. Their smiles were covered in tears. Shui Wuhan didn't quite know what feeling she had for Long Chen. Normally she gave him a strict face, afraid if she was too lax with him, he would end up causing his own death. But now thinking of his simple-minded smile, she felt it to be so warm, so intimate. But now it was gone. Sister, people need space to grow. If he's to be a dragon, he has to soar into the sky. Don't be too sad. Ouyang Chuyu patted Shui Wuhan's shoulder. Do you think Long Chen will return? Asked Shui Wuhan. She understood Long Chen's temper far too well. Now that he was going to the Central Plains, either heaven and earth would flip, or he would die a miserable death. And the probability of the latter was much higher. That's not something we can know. All we can do is not bring him more trouble, as well as pray for him. Ouyang Chuyu looked into the distance and sighed. She really was worried about Long Chen now that he had left. Long Chen and the others only realized that the flying boat was its own space once they got on it. It was much bigger than it appeared on the outside. Furthermore, on the flying boat, they could see everything outside. The flying boat was see-through from the inside and was also shockingly fast. As soon as it started moving, the Xiantian Dao sect disappeared. That made them all feel a bit mournful. Everyone had emotions. The feeling of leaving a familiar place for a foreign land was one of both excitement and nervousness. Even Long Chen felt that contradictory feeling. He wanted to stay behind and enjoy his peaceful life longer. But he also wanted to go to the Central Plains and investigate his origins. Although he wasn't actually doing any investigating, he knew his parents had to have shocking origins. Right now, he didn't have the qualifications to investigate. If he tried with his current power level, he would probably just get himself killed. Other than the mystery of his origins, he also had hot blood flowing through his veins. He thirsted to compete with other peak geniuses, wanting to step onto a larger playing field and see a vaster sky. You are Long Chen? Get out here. Long Chen and the others had just taken a seat within the boat when a person at the front icily shouted. The person demanding Long Chen come out was a foundation forging expert. Long Chen had known since before getting on the flying boat that these people were disciples from the Xiantian Dao sect's previous generation. 10 years a generation, and they were already foundation forging experts. It was truly amazing for them to be foundation forging experts in their early 30s. Furthermore, he saw that they were all at least rank 2 celestials. Some were even rank 3 celestials. Such geniuses were much stronger than the ordinary foundation forging experts he had encountered before. In the eastern wasteland, with their cultivation bases, they could establish their own sections. But in the Central Plains, they were no more than ordinary disciples. The one shouting at Long Chen was a man with long hair that scattered naturally around him. He seemed to possess a certain amount of status, as the others listened to him. Although he appeared indifferent and didn't look directly at them, Long Chen clearly saw him eyeing Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er with his peripheral vision. Looking at his arrogant manner, Long Chen knew exactly what kind of fart he was about to release. I don't have time for you, said Long Chen icily. His voice caused the head sect's disciples' expressions to change, especially the man at the front. His expression sank, and his aura began to rise. Long Chen, you don't want to join the head sect? He shouted coldly. Are you the patriarch of the sect? Sneered Long Chen. It seems you aren't. Since you aren't, it seems you're bragging a bit too much. If you really had any position in the Xiantian Dao sect, you wouldn't have run over here to handle such a matter. A poser routine that lacks any technique or skill like this is something we've all long since stopped playing. Long Chen, I, Wang Mang, challenge you to a battle, shouted that person. He took out a badge that was made of an unknown material. It was like metal but not metal, like wood but not wood. The Shen character was carved into it, and the back had Wang Mang's name. I'm busy. Long Chen shook his head. Hee, it's not up to you. According to the Xiantian Dao sect's rules, disciples are permitted to exchange pointers. You either accept or scram from the Xiantian Dao sect, said a different senior disciple. Oh, there's such a thing? Long Chen frowned. Are you afraid now? Coward, sneered another disciple. Guoran, who had been sitting there silently up until now, finally couldn't endure it anymore and stood up. He sneered, Idiot, if it weren't for your robes, you'd already be dead. You want to provoke my boss? Thank your lucky stars he doesn't care about the shouting of ants. What's all this fuss? A stern shout rang out. It was the voice of the middle-aged man, but he didn't reveal himself. Reporting to Elder Shah, disciple is acting entirely within the rules. I haven't overstepped any of them, said Wang Mang. Elder Shah's emotionless voice rang out. The Shintian Dao sect does have a rule permitting disciples to exchange pointers. But it is restricted to the same realm. If you suppress your cultivation bases to see expansion, you can do what you want. Disciples of the Eastern Wasteland, the Shintian Dao sect has its own rules, and everyone must respect them. Although some rules are a bit annoying, you only have two paths to follow. Either leave the Shintian Dao sect, or endure. If you don't want to leave and you also don't want to be restricted by the rules, then it's very simple. All you have to do is become strong enough to resist the entire Shintian Dao sect. But if any of you had that power, I guess that you'd have long since established your own sect instead of joining the Shintian Dao sect. These outer sect disciples were suppressed harshly back then as well, so their resentment is now falling on you. This is an annoying tradition, but it can't be changed, at least not by you. To put it nicely, the point is to blunt the sharpness of the newcomers, making them easier to manage. It's to avoid you not knowing how high the heavens are and being tyrannical. That's not good for your cultivation. But in truth, talking about that is useless. Rules are rules, and it doesn't matter whether you like it or not. And don't act like children. After cultivating for so long, you should know this is a world of the strong. If you don't step over others, others will step over you. If you don't kill your enemies will kill you. I don't want to hear any complaints about how this is unfair. If anyone dares to say anything like that, I'll immediately toss them out. Elder Shah's words caused everyone's hearts to shake. It seemed the Shintian Dao sect's rules were even harsher than they had thought. They suddenly realized that this group of people had definitely also been bullied by the disciples of the generation above them. Now the roles were reversed and they were ready to vent. Just what was this supposed to be? A show of power to make them less arrogant? Before giving them the candy, they first beat them a bit? Those disciples that had just joined the Shintian Dao sect were startled and enraged. The majority of them were rank 2 celestials. Fengyin and those like him hadn't come as he had chosen to stay within his sect. He had wanted to come, but his sect leader's longevity was running out. A disciple owed a heavy debt to his master and sect, and as a result, he sacrificed this chance and stayed behind to become his sect's leader. These ordinary disciples were enraged, but they saw that the expressions of all the Dragonblood Legion were completely flat. Even the ordinary Dragonblood warriors didn't reveal the slightest emotion, as if this was nothing. Did you hear Elder Shah clearly? You can't refuse, so are you going to obediently come over to be beaten, or do we need to pick our targets? But don't worry, we're very gentle to female disciples, especially the beautiful ones, laughed a senior disciple while he looked at Meng Qi, Tang Wan'er, and the other beautiful women, a wretched smile on his face. Elder Shah, is it permitted to kill people while exchanging pointers? Asked Long Qin. No. Elder Shah's voice once more rang out. What if someone accidentally kills someone? Long Qin continued asking. The reason doesn't matter. That person will be expelled from the Shintian Dao sect. What if someone heavily injures or even cripples someone else? What happens then? As long as they're not dead, it's fine. Oh, disciple understands. Long Qin nodded. Long Chen's expression was flat, but those familiar with him all knew that he was getting angry. These people might end up very unlucky today. Cowards. Don't worry, no one will take your little lives. Your senior apprentice brothers will teach you how to behave and what respect is. It's very beneficial to you, as it helps you avoid running into walls over and over once you enter the sect. So you should thank us, laughed a senior disciple, gazing at them as if they were lambs for the slaughter. But they quickly realized that while a few did look at them with the unease and terror they had expected, the majority of them were looking at them like they were idiots. That infuriated them. Wang Mang glanced at one of the people by his side, and that person immediately jumped out. Pointing at Long Chen and the others, he sneered, Who dares to come out and fight? That person released his powerful aura, but his realm was suppressed to the peak of sea expansion. As he released his aura, the flying boat quivered and its space suddenly rapidly expanded. A huge martial stage appeared. That person flew onto the martial stage, icily staring at Long Chen and the others with a derisive sneer on his face. "Brother Long, let me go." Wild was infuriated at looking at this fellow and wanted to go up. "No, it's not permitted to kill people. He won't be able to receive a single blow from you before dying." Long Chen shook his head. "Let me," said Yu Zifeng. "No, your sword Dao has just formed. Once you use it, you should only use it for killing blows. If you don't have any intent to kill, it will blind your Dao heart." Long Chen shook his head once more. Right now, Yu Zifeng's heavenly Dao runes had been wiped away by Ling Yunzi. He was focused completely on comprehending the sword Dao. With the help of the immemorial altar lamp, he had seen the path he needed to walk. He had formed an embryonic form of his own personal sword Dao. In this kind of situation, he couldn't just randomly attack. On the off chance that it had a negative impact on him, then it would be completely not worth it. Everyone heard Long Chen refuse for the two of them to go up. The senior disciple on the martial stage was infuriated. This was a naked insult. "Bastard, get the hell up here. Looks like I'm the most suitable one." Gu Yang smiled and rubbing his shiny head, he walked out. "Okay, be careful. Safety first." Long Chen nodded. Safety first? Today, I'll turn your bald head into a broken head," shouted the senior disciple. He suddenly shot forward, unleashing a fist at Gu Yang. Powerful winds whirled around his fists. Within this sealed boat, it caused a loud roaring sound that made people's hair stand on end. The expressions of the disciples that had just joined the Xiantian Dao sect were all ashen. Such power was something they didn't have the power to resist. Even if their opponents were suppressing their cultivation bases to see expansion, they weren't on the same level. But what startled them was that this fierce fist was suddenly caught by a large hand, and the owner of that hand was Gu Yang. "Idiot, you didn't even understand what boss was saying. Safety first means making sure I don't accidentally kill you." After saying that, Gu Yang's arm suddenly bulged and an explosive power came from it. In front of everyone's shocked gazes, the senior disciple was still powerless to resist even as he fought all out. He was thrown to the ground, and the sound of bones breaking caused people to wince. When Gu Yang raised that person from the ground again, they saw that this senior disciple had been turned into a lump. All his bones had been shattered, and he was unconscious. Other than the Dragon Blood Legion, everyone else was struck dumb. A lump of flesh flew over to the Xiantian Dao sect's senior disciples. "Does anyone else want to curb the arrogance of the newcomers?" Challenged Gu Yang. Gu Yang's bright head combined with his fierce expression made him seem like a large monster. Adding on how he had just defeated one of the senior disciples in one move, he appeared exceptionally imposing. "Humph, arrogant brat, I'll handle you." Another senior disciple flew onto the stage, immediately summoning his runes and attacking. Having gained experience from the previous person, he immediately let loose a magical art. They had all realized that these newcomers weren't as easy to handle as usual. As a result, he immediately used the magical art he was most proficient in. Although his cultivation base was suppressed to sea expansion, it was at the peak of sea expansion. As a foundation forging expert, his proficiency in magical arts was much deeper than a sea expansion disciple. With just a wave of his hand, his magical art shot out. His cast time was extremely short, making it so there was practically no chance to interrupt him. This was an absolute advantage they had even though their cultivation bases were suppressed. Their proficiency in magical arts usually allowed them to completely suppress the newcomers. Strength wasn't something that could be judged purely by cultivation base. This was why the newcomers were always bullied by the senior disciples. Even with cultivation bases in the same realm, the older generation disciples had 10 extra years of experience. This difference was extremely great. This senior disciple in particular would count as above average in this group. He saw that Gu Yang was a powerful brute force fighter, so he didn't fight him head-on. Boom. Gu Yang's fists smashed onto the runic fist image, shattering it. What? All the senior disciples were startled. But seeing Gu Yang suddenly release a powerful pressure containing blood qi, all their expressions changed. Spirit blood. Gu Yang had activated the power of his spirit blood. After refining the 10,000 spirit blood, he had condensed his own core runes. His spirit blood attribute increased the power of his physical body. This was the most terrifying thing about 10,000 spirit blood. A person who originally had no spirit blood could use it to excavate their potential in the area they were most proficient in and condense their own core runes. For example, a disciple might be proficient in 2 or even 3 attributes. However, those attributes wouldn't be balanced, making it so each one of them was useless. After refining 10,000 spirit blood, they could increase their ability in all of those attributes, and they could also choose to condense their core runes with one of the attributes. Once the core runes were condensed, then with the assistance of the 10,000 spirit blood, their new spirit blood would possess only one attribute. That way, all their talent would be concentrated, giving them immense power. This was the heaven-defying power of 10,000 spirit blood. In the immemorial path, Lord Heavenai had given Long Chen over 1,000 drops of 10,000 spirit blood. Other than what he had used on the Dragon Blood Legion and a small portion, Long Chen had sent over 500 drops to Yu Shaoqian. Not only that, but other than the rank 4 Heavenly Dao fruits, he had sent all the others to Yu Shaoqian. In other words, he had sent her tens of thousands of Heavenly Dao fruits. Other than those 2 things, anything he had extras of, he had sent her. He was going all out to equip this ally of his, giving himself a powerful backer. In Long Chen's mind, there was no such thing as a good or bad person. There were only enemies and allies. Even if the original devil race was wicked beyond redemption, as long as they sincerely helped him, he wouldn't mind forming a pact with the devil. However, Long Chen didn't feel that the original devil race's people were evil. Back in the immemorial path, he had seen murals showing the human race bowing to the original devil race. There was also the fact that the Eastern Wasteland Bell had lost control and furiously cursed when it had heard that the original devil race was being hunted by the whole world. That meant there were some problems with what was publicly known. But even ignoring all that, Long Chen trusted Yu Shaoqian, and since he trusted her, he would trust her fully. Practically everything he had accumulated had been given to her. He also hadn't wanted to part, but his mind told him that they couldn't be seen together in the open yet. Long Chen had intentionally handed Yu Shaoqian a long list of things to handle so that she would be busy instead of wallowing in sadness all day. Right now, Long Chen only had a few rank 4 Heavenly Dao fruits remaining. As for the Dragon Blood Legion, even the squad leaders were rank 4 Celestials. The remaining rank 4 Heavenly Dao fruits he had weren't enough for everyone else, and so he decided to have them temporarily stay as rank 3 Celestials. Gu Yang wasn't just a rank 4 Celestial, but he was also someone who possessed exceedingly pure spirit blood. Once he activated it, his power was incomparably terrifying. The senior disciple's expression changed upon seeing his magical art being shattered in one move. He was just about to switch moves when he saw Gu Yang's blinding head grow closer and seemingly brighter. Bang! Gu Yang's head smashed into that senior disciple's nose. The sound of bones breaking rang out. The senior disciple's face looked like it had been smashed by a hammer. It caved in, and with a miserable cry, he flew back. Long Chen was speechless. When did the Dragon Blood Legion begin fighting like this? Boss, how was this move of mine? Gu Yang laughed. His attack had struck cleanly. It was truly not bad. Wipe off the snot from your head before you speak. Looking at the blood and mucus on Gu Yang's head, Long Chen was speechless. I forgot. Only now did Gu Yang react. Rubbing his head, it felt slimy. Looking at his blood and snot-covered hand, he himself felt a wave of nausea. No longer in the mood to fight, Gu Yang jumped off the stage and quickly washed it off. Although he wasn't misophobic, this was just too disgusting. Guoran now pointed at Gu Yang, using him as an example of what not to do. Do you see? This is the result of trying to be a poser without having any skill. If you want to be a poser, You have to look at the situation, the people, the time, the weather, the light, the angle, the size, the enthusiasm, etc. As Dragon Blood warriors, each one of our movements relates to boss's face. Our slogan is, no being posers without assurance, and no being posers without any technique. Meng Qi and Tang Wanner turned their heads away in embarrassment, refusing to look at Guo Ran. This kind of wording was unbearably vulgar. But of course, none of the men by Long Chen's side were refined and elegant. They were always casual and carefree, often spouting such coarse language. They were mostly used to it now. If you want to be a poser, you have to follow boss's example. I've studied boss's posing for 20 years, but I've only managed to imitate him, never surpass him. You disciples, listen well. Our boss is a professor of posing. You can try being posers at other times, but don't try it in front of my boss. My boss has a simple principle: posers need a beating, and the manner doesn't matter. So if you don't want to be beaten, you better behave, said Guo Ran. Long Chen didn't say anything. He glanced sideways at Guo Ran. Day by day, Guo Ran's ability to spout nonsense grew. Now he even dared to tease him. He was only 21. How was Guo Ran supposed to have followed him for 20 years? Could it be that ever since he learned to talk, Guo Ran had been by his side, studying? Although he was a bit displeased to be used in this manner, Long Chen still felt that this kind of carefree, joking manner made them much closer. Guo Ran's shouting caused the senior disciples' expressions to sink. As a result, one of them jumped onto the martial stage. He furiously glared at Long Chen, but after a long while of hesitation, he pointed at one of the ordinary Dragon Blood warriors. You, get up here. Originally, he had been planning on challenging Guo Ran, because Guo Ran's aura was extremely weak. But as soon as he had been about to say it, he suddenly stopped. Something as unusual as that had to have something behind it. Since Guo Ran dared to say such things, even daring to use Gu Yang as an example of what not to do, he had to be at least on Gu Yang's level. So he chose someone else. That Dragon Blood warrior stepped onto the stage, and the senior disciple immediately launched a magical art. A runic wall crashed toward the Dragon Blood warrior. The Dragon Blood warrior suddenly released his blood chi, destroyed the runic wall with a single punch, and grabbed his opponent's hair, slamming his head into his knee. He slammed him 3 times, and that pitiful senior disciple felt like his head was spinning. His ears buzzed, and he stumbled around for a while before collapsing on the ground. What? Another one who possesses spirit blood, and a rank 3 celestial at that? All those senior disciples were startled. Contrary to Gu Yang, this Dragon Blood warrior wasn't so strong. In order to instantly defeat his opponent, he had summoned his heavenly Dao runes and spirit blood power at the very start. I refuse to believe all of you have spirit blood. Another senior disciple jumped onto the martial stage. Rank 3 celestials had a definite heavenly Dao suppression over rank 2 celestials, but that effect was only apparent in battles against the same realm. Since they were foundation forging experts, the heavenly Dao suppression didn't have much effect on them. All they were afraid of was the power of their spirit blood. Hee hee, little fellow, you're quite smart. You've seen through our weak point with just a glance. Yes, there truly are people without spirit blood among us. In fact, they don't even have heavenly Dao energy. If you're lucky, you might be able to pick them out, laughed Guo Ran. The Dragon Blood warriors also laughed. In the Dragon Blood Legion, the ones who weren't celestials were Long Chen, Yu Zifeng, and Wild. Thinking of the results if the senior disciples encountered them, they all became excited. That senior disciple didn't have that luck though. He picked out a squad leader, and in just a moment he was lying on the ground. The senior disciple's expressions only grew uglier. 4 people had gone out to fight, and 4 people had been beaten black and blue without the slightest ability to resist. You come out. I challenge you. The squad leader didn't feel satisfied after beating one person. He beckoned to one of the senior disciples. I refuse. With your spirit blood, you can release unbeatable power, while I have to suppress my cultivation base. It's unfair, said the senior disciple. As soon as he said that, the senior disciple disappeared. What happened? Everyone was startled by this sudden change. They hadn't seen how this person had disappeared. Even Long Chen's guard went up, as this change was too sudden. Heavens, he's flown out. Someone let out a startled cry. Looking outside the flying boat, they saw a figure rapidly shrinking and disappearing. Although it had just been an instant, they had still managed to see that senior disciple's look of despair and terror. I've already said that anyone who dares to say that something is unfair in front of me should be ready to be thrown out. Did you treat my words as just wind through your ears? Just at this moment, the cold elder Shah appeared in front of them. They felt pity for that disciple. Just because he had said something was unfair, he had been thrown out. With how large the eastern wasteland was, it was unknown if he would be able to find his way back. He should count himself lucky. This place is still above the eastern wasteland. With his cultivation base, he has a high chance of being able to live to find a cultivation city and return to the Shantian Dao sect. A bit further and we'd have entered the region of the Martial Heaven Sea. Then he'd have died. I don't care if you're a newcomer or an old disciple, you better all remember that rules are rules. When you don't have the power to break them, be well behaved, said Elder Shah. This was Long Chen's first time feeling that Elder Shah wasn't so dislikable. Although his refusal to compromise or bend was displeasing, after this event, Long Chen realized that he should simply be a stubborn old man. He was the kind of person who followed the rules no matter what. Although this kind of person wasn't someone easy to like, he also wouldn't cause others to feel too much dislike for him. Now that he understood his temper, things would be much easier. Did you hear him? Elder Shah has said that as long as we don't break the rules, anything goes. Whoever wants to go challenge them can go ahead. Don't miss this opportunity. It's not just any time that you can beat the senior generation disciples. Furthermore, while you beat them, they can't even release their true power and can only use the Sea Expansion Realm's power. Whether it's for tempering yourself or probing how strong the experts from the Central Plains are, it's a great opportunity. Brothers, what are you waiting for? Said Long Chen. His words caused the senior disciples to be infuriated. Why was it that at their generation, things were reversed? When they had come to the Central Plains, they had been bullied. Now that they finally had a chance to repay the favor and teach a lesson to these brats, they were once more the bullied targets. One of the Dragonblood warriors jumped onto the martial stage and pointed at a senior disciple, directly challenging him. With Elder Shah present, that disciple didn't dare to hesitate. He immediately jumped onto the martial stage and began a fierce fight with the Dragonblood warrior. But what startled everyone was that the Dragonblood warrior didn't release his spirit blood. He fought without it. Why aren't you activating your spirit blood? Are you looking down on me? Shouted the senior disciple. He felt like he was being looked down upon. He would rather be defeated than suffer this insult. Since you can't use your full power, then I'll also hold back. Furthermore, I'm a rank 3 celestial while you're only rank 2. I already have such an advantage, so if I activated my spirit blood, it would be unfair. Let me see just how strong the experts of the Central Plains are. Even if I lose, I won't use my spirit blood, said the Dragonblood warrior. Runes filled the air as his fists danced. Other than not using his spirit blood, he wasn't holding back at all. Elder Shah's expression was still icy, but a bit of praise appeared in his eyes. It was rare to see such a courageous disciple. Hearing this, the people who had fought before immediately felt regret. Other than some satisfaction from being posers, they had gained nothing. The right decision was to see just how strong the Central Plains experts were. Hey, what are you all looking at me for? When you were being posers, you looked so happy. Now you want to push all the responsibility on me? Guaran glared back at the few people that were glaring at him. Those people didn't say anything. They just watched the battle. That Dragonblood warrior's cultivation base was at the 5th heaven stage of Sea Expansion, and 3 colored runes revolved around him. As for the senior disciple, his cultivation base was suppressed to the peak of Sea Expansion. With each wave of his hand, runes shot out. His techniques were extremely refined. This was the skillful control of a foundation forging expert. The Dragonblood warriors' expressions grew graver as the battle progressed because they were now at a disadvantage. The power of these senior disciples was now finally showing. Although their cultivation bases had been suppressed, their skill in magical arts was unmatched. They came in an unending stream with almost no cast time and left no openings between their moves. The Dragonblood warrior exchanged over 100 blows against the senior disciple, testing all kinds of methods, but was unable to escape from his disadvantageous position. Suddenly he shouted, "Be careful!" A saber appeared within his hand. A fierce aura sword and berserk killing intent caused everyone to turn cold. His saber slashed out 3 times in a row, each time shattering his opponent's attack. On the 3rd time, it blasted through his opponent's runic shield and stopped less than an inch from his head. A drop of blood fell from the senior disciple's head. That quiet sound struck like a hammer in all the senior disciples' hearts. The instant the Dragonblood warrior had brought out that saber, it had felt like he had transformed into a bloodthirsty fiend. His boundless killing intent had shaken them to their core. The senior disciple had been terrified and instantly defeated. Seeing this, Longchen couldn't help but shake his head. They were more like greenhouse flowers that possessed power but couldn't release it. It went without saying that the Central Plains experts were powerful. But when it came to the firmness of their wills, they were much weaker than the Dragonblood warriors. "You've lost. How boring. You didn't lose to me, but to the terror in your heart." The Dragonblood warrior shook his head and returned to his side. That senior disciple remained on the martial stage for a long time, and only after a while did he react. He turned completely red when he realized the meaning of his words. When the Dragonblood warrior had released his killing intent, the senior disciple had been enveloped by a sensation of death. In that instant, the first thing he had thought of was to flee. But then he immediately thought to himself that his opponent wouldn't dare to kill him. However, what if he did end up dying? His head had been a complete mess. That made him ashamed. Now he didn't even feel like a cultivator or a man. Elder Shah didn't say a word. He stood there like a statue, but he also didn't leave. Following the senior disciple's defeat, the Dragonblood warriors began a series of challenges. Some of them even said that they wouldn't kill them so they could attack as they pleased. But whenever the Dragonblood warriors released their killing intent, it made it impossible for their opponents to believe that. Feeling that killing intent enveloping them, the senior disciples were unable to release even 80% of the power they should have been able to. Over 10 of them were defeated in a row. The Dragonblood warriors were starting to get less excited, feeling like such a battle didn't have any meaning. Longchen had long since told them not to fight any meaningless battles. The reason they were fighting now was merely to test the strength of the Central Plains experts. But now the senior disciples were too terrified to fight. Originally, they had thought that the threat of death would allow the senior disciples to release their true power, thinking it would be oil on fire. But instead, it was like water on fire, and their flames had extinguished. So what was the point of still fighting? The Dragonblood warriors lost the desire to fight. The other experts had an urge to fight, but then they also didn't dare to. "If you don't even dare to lose, what qualifications do you have to win?" said one of the Dragonblood warriors. That encouragement finally tipped the scales. Someone immediately went up to fight. As a result, he was beaten in just a moment. But now, a loss was just a loss, and he didn't suffer any humiliation. In the past, the newcomers would all be bullied by the senior generation in order to grind down their sharpness. It was to avoid them being arrogant once they arrived in the Central Plains and refusing to be managed. But this generation was different. These senior disciples didn't dare to go too far now. They were afraid of provoking the Dragonblood warriors. The ordinary disciples weren't a match for the senior disciples, while the Dragonblood warriors weren't interested in wasting time on the senior disciples. The atmosphere became a bit awkward. "You girl, do you dare to fight me without activating your spirit blood?" Suddenly, Wang Mang, who had been silent throughout these proceedings, jumped onto the martial stage and challenged Meng Qi. Courting death. Wang Mang's actions immediately infuriated the Dragonblood warriors. Meng Qi was always peaceful, isolating herself from battles whenever she could. She was like a fairy beyond the mundane world. Furthermore, she was clearly a soul cultivator. For Wang Mang to dare to challenge a soul cultivator, he definitely had a protective soul item. Combined with the limited space of the martial arena, he had an immense advantage over Meng Qi. He was truly sinister. Wang Mang, I don't know if you are really this stupid or you were bribed by someone. But you've succeeded in infuriating me. How about this, Wang Mang? I'll give you a chance. I, Long Chen, possess no spirit blood, nor am I a celestial. I'll fight you. You can use your full power and not suppress your cultivation base at all. We'll have a life and death battle, said Long Chen coldly. Toward other people's insults, disdain, and contempt, Long Chen could brush it off with a laugh. But he didn't allow others to touch his reverse scale. Everyone jumped in fright, especially those senior disciples. They looked in horror at Long Chen. Was he crazy? He wanted to challenge the Foundation, forging Wang Mang to a life and death battle? Only the Dragonblood warriors had excited expressions as they all looked forward to seeing Long Chen fight. Each time, they would feel their blood boiling. Wang Mang's expression changed, because in that instant, a terrifying sensation of death rose in his heart. That feeling was like a death god was staring at him. That is against the rules. It is not permitted, said Elder Shah, his voice icy without the slightest emotion. Long Chen, let me handle it. I know what to do. Meng Qi slowly walked forward. She floated onto the martial stage, her white robes and black hair billowing. She looked like she had walked right out of a painting, appearing indescribably graceful and sacred. Seeing Meng Qi come onto the martial stage, Wang Mang's heart shook. A bad feeling rose within him. He had long since thoroughly examined the disciples from the eastern wasteland. Meng Qi had very weak heavenly Tao fluctuations, and she seemed harmless. Furthermore, she was a soul cultivator, and so he thought her to be the weakest target in the Dragonblood Legion. But once Meng Qi came onto the martial stage, despite her appearing tranquil and calm, an intense feeling of unease appeared in Wang Mang's heart. Wang Mang, you shouldn't have tried to use me to infuriate Long Chen. From your eyes, I can see your greed and guess your goal. For you to want to provoke Long Chen so much, you're clearly using your position for selfish purposes. You have a hidden agenda. That's enough. Senior disciples teaching the new disciples is the tradition of the Xiantian Dao sect. You can't change it, so don't waste so many words, shouted Wang Mang. But anyone with sharp eyes could tell he was putting on a fierce act to hide his panic. Meng Qi had clearly guessed right. I was just warning you out of the kindness of my heart. But since you don't want to be grateful, forget about it. Be careful, because an underworld soul magical armor won't provide you with much safety. Meng Qi shook her head. Underworld soul magical armor? The senior disciples were startled, while the Eastern Wastelands disciples didn't know what it was. This armor was something that came from a magical beast only the size of an ordinary ox. Its body was in the shape of a pangolin, but its scales were exquisite and practically transparent. It was an extremely rare magical beast capable of soul energy attacks. Its hide could be manufactured into a soul item that could make someone practically immune to spiritual attacks. That was because its spiritual strength was stored in every one of its scales, and those scales possessed shocking absorptive properties. However, underworld soul magical beasts were extremely rare, as well as crafty. They were sensitive to danger, which made their armor exceedingly precious. It was unexpected for Wang Mang to be able to possess such a rare thing. What was even more unexpected was that Meng Qi could see through her opponent's trump card before even attacking. So what if you know about the underworld soul magical armor? You'll still be helpless against me. Wang Mang was startled, but there was no way for him to stop now. With a shout, he charged at Meng Qi. 3 colored runes formed a sea around him. Forming hand seals, a huge runic spear condensed in the air and shot toward her. Bastard! The Dragonblood warriors became even more infuriated. This bastard instantly used his full power and such a terrifying move. He was going too far against a soul cultivator. Suddenly, a roar rang out. A huge claw smashed down, shattering the runic spear. a huge earth dragon appeared. It opened its mouth, spurting out golden flames that enveloped Wang Mang instantly. "You're a beast tamer." Wang Mang was startled. He hastily condensed a runic barrier around himself against the earth dragon's flames. He had only just blocked the earth dragon's flames when a bird cry rang out. A red-eye sacred blood phoenix appeared above him and its true feather rose. The runes on its feathers circulated and a red light suddenly shot out. Wang Mang's barrier shattered and the red ray continued. Wang Mang was horrified. This was no spiritual attack, and his armor had no effect against it. It would take his life like this. The red-eye sacred blood phoenix had reached the 8th rank under Meng Qi's care. Furthermore, since Meng Qi could direct it, its divine ability was now able to achieve many times the effect of it attacking alone. This was the most terrifying aspect of beast tamers. A magical beast wasn't frightening, but a magical beast with intelligence was, especially one being controlled by a beast tamer. Although the magical beast's intelligence was low, their divine abilities were hereditary. When adding on the technique and timing of the beast tamer's direction, their power was brought to a pinnacle. Xian scale armor. At this life and death juncture, Wang Mang couldn't have so many misgivings. He released his foundation forging cultivation base, forming a huge runic shield to block this attack. He had no choice but to go all out, because using a sea expansion cultivation base, this defense of his wouldn't have been summoned fast enough. Only by using a foundation forging cultivation base had he been able to instantaneously use this magical art. Boom. Shockingly, the runic shield Wang Mang summoned with his foundation forging cultivation base also shattered upon being struck. But fortunately, the red ray also disappeared. Before Wang Mang could even sigh with relief, a huge tail swung over. That was the earth dragon's tail. Under Meng Qi's control, the timing was perfect. By the time Wang Mang sensed it, he had already been struck. Wang Mang wildly vomited blood, feeling like his body was about to be torn apart. He flew back. "Be suppressed." Meng Qi's soul-suppressing tower appeared, and it descended, smashing into Wang Mang's body. When the soul-suppressing tower rose once more, everyone was horrified to find that Wang Mang had been turned practically flat, like a housefly that had been slapped against the wall. However, he hadn't died. His body was flat, but his head remained. That was the result of Meng Qi being merciful, or it was unknown how many times over he would have died. But his underworld soul magical armor was shattered. Everyone was silent, even the dragon blood warriors. They had never seen Meng Qi use such domineering techniques. Previously, when Meng Qi killed people, her enemies would always lay on the ground like they were simply sleeping. It was never so bloody. "You challenged me in order to infuriate Long Chen. I really can't understand why you people would be so stupid as to constantly test Long Chen's bottom line. He's tired and he's suffered enough. His shoulders are under enough weight, but you still want to step on him. Since you're so foolish, then I also won't mind dyeing my hands with blood and becoming a bloodthirsty devil." Meng Qi indifferently looked at the terrified Wang Mang who was lying in a pool of his own blood. Meng Qi was always tranquil and never liked fighting. But then little Snow had died. Long Chen's heartbroken cry showed just how powerless and aggrieved he had felt. That scene was deeply imprinted in her heart. On that day, she swore to no longer be a benevolent woman. She wanted to share Long Chen's burden, and if she had to become a blood-soaked devil to do so, she didn't mind. In the cultivation world, there was no clear yardstick for right and wrong, kind or cruel. Now, she no longer cared. She was tired of caring about what was right and what was wrong. What she wanted was to protect Long Chen. Long Chen had given them so much that it was too much. He was tired, and what Meng Qi wanted was to share as much of his burden as she could. Looking at Meng Qi's face, her words echoed in Long Chen's heart, and he felt a warm current inside. He was indescribably grateful to have such women, as well as slightly distressed. He felt like he had wronged them by having them by his side. "Speak, why did you target us?" demanded Meng Qi, looking at the flat lump on the ground. She had no pity for him. "I am following the rules." Wang Mang wanted to quibble when a burst of pain erupted from his soul. It was like millions of needles were piercing him. "Elder Shah, save me," he wailed. Elder Shah didn't move. His expression was still cold as he indifferently said, "That wouldn't be in accordance with the rules. As the challenger, you have to take responsibility once you lose." "But I'm going to die. She wants to kill me." "You're just watching as I die." Wang Mang was constantly wailing from the pain Meng Qi was causing him. But his body was unable to move. "According to the rules, once you die, I will cancel her qualifications to join the Xiantian Dao sect," said Elder Shah indifferently. It was like nothing could interest him. "Release me, release me. I'll tell you." It was a senior apprentice brother from the law enforcement hall. "He told me to take care of you," Wang Mang finally submitted. "Law enforcement hall?" Long Chen and the others instantly understood. This should be something caused by Lu Minghan. But that also seemed wrong. Lu Minghan should understand Long Chen's power, so why would he send people to their deaths? After thinking about it for a bit, Long Chen understood. This was definitely related to how Li Changfeng had captured Lu Minghan. Two elders fighting would definitely cause a wave in the Xiantian Dao sect, and most likely, the disciples from the law enforcement hall had gotten wind of it. Wanting to suck up to Lu Minghan, they had told Wang Mang to take care of Long Chen and the others. Without even thinking about it, it was obvious Wang Mang had to have received quite some benefits from those people to follow their orders. Otherwise, without having received a heavy bribe, there was no way he would continue to antagonize Long Chen by challenging Meng Qi once he had seen how strong the Dragon Blood warriors were. Most likely, he had just wanted to embarrass Long Chen a bit. Then he could report his success back. After all, not doing work after being paid was no good. But this work's price was extremely great, almost costing his life. Long Chen snorted coldly. His gaze swept through the other senior disciples, causing their hair to stand on end. "It has nothing to do with us. We had no idea," cried those disciples in terror. Now that this matter was done, Elder Shah turned to leave. But Long Chen suddenly said, "Disciple has some things he would like to ask. Elder Shah, can you teach me?" Long Chen hastily stopped Elder Shah upon seeing he was about to leave. He had many things he wanted to ask this elder, but he just hadn't had an opportunity. Elder Shah frowned slightly. "What things?" "Just some matters pertaining to the Central Plains and the Xiantian Dao sect," said Long Chen. According to the rules, elders truly do have the responsibility to answer pertinent questions asked by disciples. "Go ahead." Everyone was surprised that Elder Shah didn't refuse. Those senior disciples were especially perplexed. This Elder Shah was incredibly cold. On the way here, he hadn't spoken more than 3 times. But Long Chen had seen through Elder Shah's character after a few interactions. Although Elder Shah's cultivation base was terrifying, as a person he was very straightforward. He did everything according to the rules. The reason he didn't speak much wasn't because he was acting arrogant. Long Chen had misjudged him previously. Some senior disciples helped peel Wang Mang off the martial stage. They gave him medicinal pills, and he circulated his heavenly Dao energy to heal. His body quickly inflated as he recovered. Meng Qi's last move had been too vicious, so for him to fully recover would take a certain amount of time. That was because Meng Qi was also a celestial, and her attacks contained heavenly Dao energy, which made the wound harder to heal. Everyone hastily grouped up to listen upon hearing that Elder Shah was answering questions. They respectfully stood around him, even the senior disciples. "Go ahead and ask them your questions first. If they can't answer, I will," said Elder Shah, indicating Long Chen to ask the senior disciples. He didn't like talking needlessly. "Senior apprentice brother Long Chen, go ahead and ask anything." "We definitely won't hide anything we know," said a senior disciple. No matter how stupid they were, they could tell Long Chen was the most terrifying existence in this group. Although he hadn't fought, considering that he dared to challenge Wang Mang to a life-and-death match, they all knew he was confident. As for Wang Mang, he had used his foundation forging cultivation base in the end, but still been crushed. Therefore, they didn't dare to look down on Long Chen anymore. Their attitudes had completely reversed. Hearing this senior disciple call Long Chen's senior apprentice brother made the others chortle. It was like they were the senior apprentice brothers. As for Elder Shah, he was indifferent. It was like he had long since known it would be like this. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen, you might not know this, but other than those with official posts, we all call the stronger one senior. It has nothing to do with cultivation base or age. With your power, there might even be some seniors who are several centuries old who will call you senior apprentice brother, or perhaps even senior, explained that senior disciple. The Eastern Wastelands disciples couldn't help but find this rule odd. The Central Plains was truly different. Long Chen didn't care about such trifles. He got straight to the point. How many days will it take us to get to the Central Plains? Probably 3 months. The senior disciple bitterly smiled. 3 months. All the newcomers were startled. Even with this flying boat's terrifying speed, it would still take 3 months. Yes, and that's if nothing unexpected happens. We have to go over the Martial Heaven Searing to get the Central Plains, then go through 9 supreme transportation formations before arriving at the Xiantian Dao sect. The newcomers took in a breath of cold air. 3 months of high-speed flying and 9 supreme transportation formations. That was a bit too far, wasn't it? It was no wonder it was said that the Eastern Wasteland, Western Desert, Southern Sea, and Northern Source were just some wild lands on the border of the continent. Now they learned that altogether, they took up less than a fifth of the Martial Heaven continent. The rest of it was the Central Plains. What is the Martial Heaven Searing? Asked Tang Wanner curiously. The Martial Heaven Searing. That disciple looked toward Elder Shah. Go ahead. The legends say that, and no one knows if it's true, said Elder Shah. Legend says that the Martial Heaven continent underwent a huge war in the Immortal Era, and through a battle of gods and devils, the entire land shattered. A ring-shaped sea formed during that time. It is said that it is the result of a bracelet smashing into the continent. A bracelet? How is that possible? What bracelet would be that big? Demanded Guoran. That was simply unimaginable. It's just what the legends say. No one knows for sure as there are no accurate records. These are just legends that can't be trusted, said the senior disciple awkwardly. Back then, they had also scoffed upon hearing this legend. Just because you haven't seen something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Legends can't be trusted, but they're not necessarily groundless. The reason we can't believe it is because we haven't reached that realm. Long Chen shook his head. That was because he thought of the Eastern Wasteland bell. That damaged, half-dead bell was so strong that king items were like specks of dust in front of it. That had completely shocked Long Chen. Elder Shah looked at him and nodded slightly. This thinking won him a bit of praise. To have such wisdom at such an age was rare. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen is right. The Martial Heaven continent's 5 great divine items have also never been seen, but who dares to say that they really don't exist? Originally, the Martial Heaven continent's 5 parts were around the same size. But once the Martial Heaven Searing formed, the entire continent's terrain changed. The Eastern Wasteland, Western Desert, Southern Sea, and Northern Source became much smaller. Gradually, those 4 regions became wild lands of no interest to anyone. And thus, the Central Plains became the true cultivation land of the Martial Heaven continent. The cultivators there are as numerous as grains of sand in a desert. Originally, the 4 regions had their own unique Dao paths, but when the ring-shaped sea formed around the Central Plains, those 4 regions lost a great deal of their core. What remains currently is just some bits and pieces, and the true inheritances. Well, you understand, said that disciple awkwardly. Everyone understood. That mysterious bracelet, which might not even exist, had caused a ring-shaped sea to form around the Central Plains. It had caused the most damage to the other 4 regions, causing a place like the Eastern Wasteland to be nothing more than a savage, uncivilized land. The Central Plains has millions and millions of sects, but our Xiantian Dao sect is well known even within it. It is on the same level as the heaven-splitting divine sect and heaven-suppressing magical sect. They are called the 3 great heavenly sects, said the disciple proudly. Being able to wear the Xiantian Dao sect's robes was clearly something to be proud of. Are the three great heavenly sects able to dominate the Central Plains? Asked Guoran. Probably, no, definitely not, said the disciple. Brother, the Central Plains is so large that you probably won't understand. Even we, who have stayed in the Xiantian Dao sect for a decade, after perusing countless tomes, only understand the slightest bits about the Central Plains as a whole, said another senior disciple. Sorry, I wasn't trying to argue. It's just that you were making the Xiantian Dao sect sound so amazing, so I thought that by wearing the same robes, I'd be something like a ruler of the world, said Guoran with no shame. The senior disciples relaxed a great deal. Previously, they had felt these fellows in front of them to be fierce monsters, but now they found that they really were quite easy to talk to. All that can be said is that the Xiantian Dao sect can count as above average in the entire Central Plains. Practically everyone in the cultivation world has heard of it. Once you reach the Xiantian Dao sect, I guarantee you'll be stupefied by the sect's grandness. It's just that. Just what? Asked Guoran. It's just that this time, the Eastern Wasteland only sent over a pitiful number of disciples. It's the last place amongst the 4 regions. I remember in the last generation, there were over 20,000, but this time, said a senior disciple curiously. The truth was that while the remote Heaven Gang was powerful and dared to challenge the branch Xiantian Dao sect, they were unable to stop other sects from sending their disciples over. Every 10 years, when the Xiantian Dao sect was sending disciples over to the Central Plains, there would be a grand celebration. The head sect didn't really care that much about the branch sects, as they were just some minor bases. Even disciples that weren't part of those branch sects could use the opportunity once every 10 years to try and join the head sect. This was the Xiantian Dao sect's confidence. They weren't worried about people with evil intent. They were sure that once these disciples arrived in the Central Plains, they would change. Their original intentions would be gone. In the eyes of the head sect, the struggles in the other 4 regions were insignificant, not worth a second thought. It was like children playing house. In truth, I'm also very curious, said Elder Shah. Long Chen was startled. Did you not ask Sect Master Ouyang Chuyu? It wasn't in accordance with the rules. Since it is not within the scope of my responsibility, it wasn't convenient to ask, said Elder Shah. Long Chen almost laughed. This Elder Shah really was hidebound by convention. He would rather keep his questions inside than ask. He could be counted as a marvel. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen, why are there so few disciples from the Eastern Wasteland this time? Asked a senior disciple curiously. Long Chen immediately felt awkward. The answer wasn't really convenient to say. The other Dragonblood warriors also had awkward expressions, causing the senior disciples to look at each other. Just what was going on? What is there to be embarrassed about? Weren't they just slaughtered by us? It's not embarrassing, so why bother hiding it? Said Guoran unashamedly. What? All the senior disciples were dumbfounded, unable to believe their ears. But Guoran was already telling them a story about how Long Chen had led them to dominate the Eastern Wasteland. No wonder they sent me this time. I'm from the Sect Protection Pavilion. Originally, I wasn't supposed to be in charge of this matter. Elder Shah came to a sudden comprehension upon hearing how Li Changfeng had brought Lu Minghan away. Wang Mang, you should have heard of this matter. Go ahead, tell us. Long Chen coldly stared at Wang Mang, who was in the midst of recovering from his heavy injuries. Wang Mang stiffened as he now understood just how pathetic he was. Why had he provoked a fiend like Long Chen? Guoran had explained why there were so few disciples from the Eastern Wasteland, and now he knew what kind of person Long Chen was. This isn't my fault. Stuttered Wang Mang. What hostility is there between the Law Enforcement Hall and the Elders' Hall? Said Long Chen. He wasn't interested in what bribe Wang Mang had received or who had used him. There does seem to be some conflicts between them, but I don't know the specifics, said Wang Mang. How could he, a small disciple, have the qualifications to learn about the matters between the higher-ups? The Xiantian Dao sect's interior is extremely complicated. Learning about those things right now won't do anything for you. All you have to remember is that as long as you don't break the rules, you'll be safe. If other people want to fight, that's their issue, said Elder Shah. No wonder you always talk about the rules, laughed Long Chen. This joke of Long Chen's caused everyone's hearts to shake. Although it was said with laughter, they all felt that it also contained some ridicule. But surprisingly, Elder Shah didn't get angry. He looked into the distance for a long time before saying, I was once like you as well, young, full of energy and hope for the future. Hee. Long Chen took over, saying, hee, regretfully, things never go as people want. There are always all kinds of obstructions, impediments trapping you like net after net. Day after day, year after year, a person eventually gets lost. Some people have long since forgotten their original hearts in the fight for fame, for profit. Then there are some people who end up like Senior, becoming a puppet that only knows how to follow the rules. Thinking about it, it really is sad. Long Chen. Meng Qi tugged on Long Chen, indicating that he should be careful with his words. He had no enmity with Elder Shah, so why would he offend him? Even the senior disciples trembled with fear. Long Chen was far too brazen. But what they found curious was that the cold Elder Shah didn't get angry at all, nor did he reprimand Long Chen. Instead, he just calmly looked into the distance. The flying boat was still rapidly flying, and the mountains below quickly passed. However, the inside of the flying boat was completely silent. These are the rules. After a long while, Elder Shah indifferently tossed out some words. Hee, disciple doesn't believe so. Rules are things the strong use to control the weak. The strong can infringe upon the rules, and the stronger ones can completely ignore the rules. As for the strongest ones, they are the ones who can change the rules whenever they want. In the Phoenix Cry Empire, I was to comply with the Phoenix Cry Empire's rules. In the Xiantian Monastery, I was to comply with the Xiantian Monastery's rules. In the Super Monastery, it was the same. But I didn't comply with those rules because if I had, I'd have long since died a tragic death. So, once I reach the Central Plains, I'll follow the rules that are favorable to me. But as for those rules that suppress me, I'm afraid that disciple will be unable to comply, said Long Chen. Then you will be mercilessly exterminated, said Elder Shah. If I'm to be exterminated, then let me be exterminated. None of the Dragonblood Legion's warriors are afraid of death. We have our own principles and our own aspirations. I'm not worried they'll die, but I am worried they'll become the same as Senior, losing themselves within the crushing rules and becoming a walking corpse, sighed Long Chen. The Dragonblood warriors all understood Long Chen's meaning. He was using Elder Shah as an example of what not to do in order to warn them. Even someone as strong as Elder Shah had been turned into a machine because of the Xiantian Dao sect's rules. Rules killed people without them even noticing, erasing a person's will and devouring their ambitions. The most frightful thing about it was that it was like boiling a frog in water. It erased a person's heroism without them sensing the danger. The Dragonblood warriors thought about how they had followed Long Chen from the 108th monastery to the 36th super monastery, and then to the Xiantian Dao sect. Hadn't all those monastery heads and all those elders been silently sacrificed to these rules? They had also been young and full of hot blood once. But that hot blood and youthful vigor had been erased without them even knowing it. As a result, they ended up with some tired days of nothing. They schemed against each other in a game of mutual deception, caught in the web the rules had created for them. They had forgotten their original hearts. The 108th monastery, the 36th super monastery, the Eastern Wastelands branch sect, they had been like vats of dye, each bigger and more contaminating than the last. According to that pattern, the Central Plains Xiantian Dao sect would be an even larger vat of dye. Even kings were silently lost to it. Looking at how a terrifying expert like Elder Shah had been turned into a puppet that was simply doing what he was told, it was like they were seeing their futures, and a cold chill ran through their bodies. If Elder Shah's present was their future, then they would rather die in a blazing fire of passion than become like him. Without goals, cultivation didn't have any meaning. Boss, we'll never forget our original hearts. No matter what realm we cultivate to, no matter what robes we wear, we will still be the same youthful men. If others refuse to allow that, we'll go all out against them. shouted the Dragon Blood warriors. They knew that Long Chen was warning them to forever maintain their passion, their fervor. "Are you using me as an example of what not to do?" said Elder Shah indifferently. But there was clearly a slightly bitter tone to his voice. "Sorry, disciple was rude." Long Chen bowed slightly. He did feel a bit apologetic. There was no way around that. Through Elder Shah's words, Long Chen felt that the Xiantian Dao sect was definitely a muddled place. That reduced his excitement and anticipation by quite a bit. The Central Plains was definitely the playing field of the world's experts, but this beautiful field was constructed through the bones of countless geniuses. It was unknown how much merciless killing was behind it. Long Chen didn't wish for the Dragonblood Legion to become lost in these kinds of ideas. Once they were lost, it would be difficult to extricate them. That kind of ending was a sad one as well. If he wanted the Dragonblood Legion to stay complete, he had to lead them forward without hesitation and without submitting to anyone, including those unreasonable rules. Fighting against the rules might cause the entire legion to be destroyed, but they had to have that courage. They had to have the courage to risk their lives, to show their fangs, and only then would they be able to establish themselves within the Central Plains. Otherwise, they would be devoured by the countless heavenly geniuses present. Elder Shah sighed. The younger generation will surpass the old. Perhaps that kind of mentality is a good one. After saying that, Elder Shah turned and left, his figure appearing a bit lonely. But he also clearly didn't have a good opinion of Long Chen's conduct. Perhaps it was because he had experienced a great deal and seen plenty of geniuses who had ended up with tragic endings. And so he was already weary. Looking at his departing figure hardened the Dragonblood warriors' hearts even more. They even felt that Elder Shah was pitiful. He was someone who had been trampled by the rules. At the same time, they had to admire Long Chen for his vision. As the rudder of the Dragonblood Legion, Long Chen didn't just need unrivaled power, but he also needed exceptional wisdom. Those senior disciples were deeply shaken. Looking at the Dragonblood warriors' fervent gazes, they felt like they were being affected as well. "How many disciples were there in total from the 4 regions last time?" asked Long Chen. "There were over 370,000, said the senior disciple. "How many?" Long Chen couldn't believe his ears. "A bit more than 370,000, the disciple repeated. 370,000? All of whom were Sea Expansion Celestials? This number gave Long Chen a fright. It was no wonder they said that the Eastern Wasteland was the weakest region. Of over 370,000 people, only 20,000 had come from the Eastern Wasteland. That proportion made him speechless. "There must have been quite a few heavenly geniuses amongst your generation, correct?" asked Long Chen. "Yes, there truly were many. They were practically monsters, inhuman. We can only look up to them." That senior disciple bitterly smiled, clearly having received a great impact. Of those 370,000 disciples, although these senior disciples couldn't count as the weakest, they had still been on the edge of being washed out. They couldn't even count as elites, let alone heavenly geniuses. The most infuriating thing was that the Xiantian Dao sect's rules allowed many loopholes for senior disciples to bully them, and they could only endure it. This time, they had been sent to greet the newcomers. Originally, they had been hoping to vent some of their resentment. But instead it was the newcomers who gave them a warm welcome. After talking for so long, everyone became much more familiar with each other. The senior disciples didn't dare to be arrogant any longer. Instead, they began to talk with the Dragonblood warriors, subtly fawning over them. They found that each one of these Dragonblood warriors possessed extremely dense spirit blood. Such people would find it no problem to pass the trials and join the Xiantian Dao sect. They should all become inner sect disciples. These senior disciples were no more than outer sect disciples. They probably wouldn't be able to go to the inner sect in their lifetime. So forming good relationships with the Dragonblood warriors might bring them endless benefits. Even Wang Meng ran over to Long Chen to apologize, cursing himself for being deceived by other people's lies. He even said that he deserved 1,000 deaths for his actions. Long Chen couldn't be bothered to quibble with him. This was nothing serious to him, and he didn't bother pressing him for more details. Now that everyone was familiar with each other, they once more went out to exchange pointers. But this time, it was a friendly competition where both sides used their full power. The Dragonblood warriors used their spirit blood, while the senior disciples no longer suppressed their cultivation bases. These new battles were exceptionally intense. What startled the senior disciples was the fact that the Dragonblood warriors were shockingly powerful. In these intense battles, the killing intent they released made it seem like this was no exchange of pointers. It felt like they would kill them at any moment. But there were some senior disciples capable of fighting through the sensation of death. They released their true power, and in this kind of battle, the Dragonblood warriors were truly one level weaker. But if it was a true life and death battle, then that would have been a completely different matter. On the seventh day, the scenery around them completely changed. The mountains and plains vanished, replaced by a vast roaring sea. A roaring sea appeared below the flying boat, stretching into the horizon without end. The blue water frothed and raged, with huge waves bigger than mountains crashing down. The Eastern Wasteland's disciples had never seen such a thing. In front of this huge sea, they felt themselves to be incredibly minuscule. "Is this martial heaven searing very dangerous?" asked Guoran nervously. "Very dangerous. In fact, the martial heaven searing is one of the 7 great danger zones. Although it's ring-shaped, just going through its width would take a full week of full-speed flying. Sea demons run amok within the sea, and they are exceptionally dangerous. In order to avoid disturbing powerful sea demons, we can't fly at full speed over it and can only stealthily slip our way through," explained the senior disciple. 7 great danger zones? The Central Plains is extremely large, and even we only know that the martial heaven searing is one of the 7 danger zones. Fortunately, it's very large, and so the danger is scattered, making it less fearful. However, it truly is one of the 7 danger zones, and every time you fly over it, you have to be careful. Using a smaller flying boat would actually be better, because it doesn't draw as much attention. But our flying boat is too big, and it's all too easy for powerful sea demons to notice us. If it was just ordinary sea demons, it'd be fine. Even if we ran into king-level sea demons, in other words, 9th-rank sea demons, there would be nothing to fear. But if we meet sea demons above that, it'll be troublesome, said the senior disciple. Each year, countless flying boats disappeared over the martial heaven searing, and no one dared to guarantee being able to pass it with absolute safety. Sea demons? As in, magical beasts that live within the sea? Asked Guoran. You can put it like that. But they do have some differences from ordinary magical beasts. They have no crystal cores, but they have a nidin inside that is even more valuable. However, sea demons are stronger and fiercer than magical beasts. It's unknown just how many terrifying sea demons are hidden within the depths of the sea. Boom! Suddenly, the flying boat shook intensely, causing everyone to reel. The flying boat fiercely tilted. No need to worry, it's just the storm zone. This is just some minor turbulence. This area is where the land's airstream clashes with the sea's airstream. In truth, this storm zone is the safest part of the martial heaven searing, said the disciple. How do you mean? Because this area doesn't have sea demons, as they don't like this environment. That makes it the safest. The storm zone wasn't very large. After just an hour's flying, they passed it. A beautiful, sunny sky appeared in front of them, one without any clouds. The sea was calm with only slight waves. It was a beautiful and peaceful scene. But as soon as they arrived here, the senior disciples tensed. The flying boat also slowed down, making less of a disturbance as it flew. Without any warning, a ripple appeared on the sea. A head bigger than a mountain broke through the surface of the water, and a huge spout of water smashed into the flying boat. The flying boat was struck and catapulted through the air. The people inside all became dizzy. What is that? Asked Guoran. Cyan-scaled monsters. They're extremely loathsome, as they enjoy attacking things that are flying over the water. If smaller flying boats are seen by them, then the attacks they unleash might destroy the whole boat. However, smaller boats were also harder to see, so there was less chance of being struck. Thus, they actually had quite an advantage. But the Xiantiandao sect couldn't send one, because they hadn't known how many people they would be bringing back. For their mountain-sized flying boat to fly over the water, they truly were very eye-catching. Then why not have the flying boat fly higher? Then wouldn't they be able to avoid the sea demon's attacks? A good idea, but it won't work. The martial heaven searing is extremely strange. Up in the air, there are strange laws. The higher the flying boats go, the greater the resistance. It'll cause loud rumbling and be even less safe. Everyone couldn't help being startled. This martial heaven searing was too bizarre. They were nervous, as well as a bit excited. The flying boat was constantly shaken as occasional water spouts struck it. It was constantly forced to tumble through the air, making everyone lightheaded. It was difficult to bear. Fuck, is there an end to this? Cursed Guaran. He felt nauseated. Endure it. Once we're past this region, it'll be smoother. It was the same for us when we came, comforted a senior disciple. In truth, they all found this unbearable. It was like they were stuck in a ball, and the sea demon's attacks were like kicks to the ball. Each time they were struck, it made them feel worse. Meng Qi had it the worst. Tang Wana was supporting her, but within the flying boat, she wasn't able to help much at all. As a soul cultivator, Meng Qi's body was too weak. Her face was pale, causing Long Chen distress. Unable to bear it anymore, he stood up and said, "Elder Shah, release the defenses. I'll make them scram." "You have a method?" Elder Shah was controlling the flying boat. In truth, he was also uncomfortable, but there was no way around this. "Yes." Long Chen nodded. Elder Shah hesitated for a moment but then said, "This region isn't very peaceful. You can't kill them, or the blood will draw more powerful sea demons." This was precisely the reason why he hadn't just attacked them. "Don't worry, I understand." "Fine." Elder Shah waved his hand, and the transparent barrier around the flying boat dissipated. Long Chen appeared at the front of the boat. Everyone else was tightly holding onto the flying boat. Now that the defenses had scattered, if they were struck, then when they were blown into the air, there would be nothing to keep them on the flying boat. Long Chen extended a hand, and a ball of lightning formed. Countless lightning runes circulated within it, releasing an ear-piercing rumble. The senior disciples were shocked. Even Elder Shah's expression changed. Heavenly tribulation lightning? How can he control the 9 heavens tribulation lightning? Long Chen tossed the lightning ball into the sea. It disappeared, and following that, countless mountain-sized bodies floated to the surface of the sea. They're all unconscious. Only now did everyone get a chance to get a good look at the cyan-scaled monsters. Their bodies were huge and protected by layers of scales. They looked like prawns, except that their bodies were absolutely huge, and there was a large cavity on their heads which they launched their attacks from. They accumulated water in their bodies, and through compression, they released their water spouts with extremely great power. However, they were extremely weak to thunder force. Long Chen had originally just been trying to drive them away. He hadn't expected that they would all fall unconscious from this lightning ball. "I'll open a space and draw the cyan-scaled monsters into the flying boat. Kill them within the flying boat, and remember not to let them bleed. Their nadens contain pure water essence and are very valuable. Once we return to the Xiantiandao sect, you'll be able to exchange them for the resources you need." Looking at the hundreds of cyan-scaled monsters on the surface of the water, Elder Shah couldn't help but do a little rule-breaking. At this time, it was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. However, perhaps it was because he had been influenced by Long Chen, but he felt like wasting these cyan-scaled monsters was too regretful. He activated one of the flying boat's functions, and rays of light shot down, like hands drawing them into the flying boat. The space inside the flying boat was much greater than what it appeared on the outside. Long Chen and the others didn't know what was going on, but they saw the senior disciples were delighted. The senior disciples killed the sea demons with spiritual strength and told Long Chen that other than their rations, they could also exchange resources they had gathered for resources they needed within the Xuantandao sect's pavilions. As outer sect disciples, The amount of resources they could gather was limited, so they needed to work hard to get them. In truth, coming out to pick up the Eastern Wasteland's disciples was a lucrative mission. Other than their task to blunt the newcomers' arrogance, within a relatively safe zone in the martial heaven searing, they could hunt a few sea demons and exchange them for resources they needed. Before even reaching the hunting zone, they had already obtained this many cyan-scaled monsters. They were incredibly excited, because according to the rules, the resources obtained during the journey would be split amongst everyone. This was a typical case of first giving a slap and then giving a candy. First, the senior disciples were to give the newcomers a beating, and then to avoid them getting depressed, the senior disciples would hunt down sea demons and split the profits with them. This psychological tactic tempered the newcomers' arrogance and gave them newfound hope for their futures. It was quite the routine. But now it was different from before. It wasn't the newcomers profiting from the senior disciples. Instead, they were all profiting from Long Chen. They continued on their way. As long as more cyan-scaled monsters appeared, Long Chen would toss out a lightning ball and knock them unconscious. Thunder Force was their bane, and in front of it, their combat power was essentially zero. The flying boat peacefully flew along. Everyone wished for more attacks now so they could get more profit. "I don't care about the Nadens, but don't throw out the meat. Leave it for Wild," said Long Chen. Long Chen saw that the senior disciples only took in the Nadens, but they tossed aside the meat like it was trash. However, those corpses were what Long Chen and Wild wanted. Another couple hours passed and they had flown out of the region of the cyan-scaled monsters. But the amount of Nadens they had gathered caused the senior disciples to smile ear to ear. "Senior apprentice brother Long Chen, we're rich," exclaimed Wang Mang excitedly. They had gathered over 3,000 Nadens. Splitting it equally, each one of them would get 6. That was extremely great wealth. Wang Mang had long since recognized and accepted the situation. After apologizing profusely to Long Chen and Meng Qi, he treated them all exceptionally respectfully. And due to the principle of not beating a smiling face, no one bothered quibbling with him over his actions. Everyone was familiar with each other and had forgotten about their previous hostility. Having obtained this many Nadens, they were all happy. These cyan-scaled monsters were huge, but in truth, they were only 7th rank. However, within their homeland of the sea, their power was comparable to 8th rank magical beasts. That made their Nadens even more valuable. In just a while, their profit was equivalent to half a year's rations in the Xiantian Dao sect. The senior disciples were incredibly excited, and at the same time, their reverence for Long Chen grew. However, Long Chen didn't feel much. Although these cyan-scaled monsters' Nadens were valuable, he was an alchemist. He didn't lack this money. Furthermore, he had fought countless battles on his cultivation journey. There was one sentence that could sum up his experience: battle was the quickest way of getting rich. Although Long Chen had left behind a portion of the profits he had obtained in the Eastern Wasteland to the Xiantian Dao sect and Yu Shaoqian, he wasn't lacking money. He had Yuan Spirit Stones, peak-grade Divine Mortal Molting Elixir, and 10,000 Spirit Blood. They were all priceless treasures. And even if he didn't have such things, he also had his powerful alchemy skills. By refining a few rare pills, the money would flow in. Furthermore, he was currently cooperating with Zheng Wenlong. He brought the pill formulas, while Zheng Wenlong brought the manpower and means. He shouldn't be lacking money in the future. After passing through that region, Elder Shah had once more summoned the flying boat's barrier. Although they occasionally encountered a sea demon's attack on their way, their power wasn't strong and their numbers were low. They could essentially ignore those attacks. The flying boat continued for a full day and night before it began to slow down and came to a stop. "We've arrived at the hunting region." Wang Mang and the others were delighted. They had clearly been waiting just for this. This hunting region was something that generations of people had determined through countless years of experimentation with travel routes. People found that there weren't powerful sea demons in this region. So this became the Xiantian Dao sect's hunting region when returning from the eastern wasteland to the central plains. Different flying boats used different flying routes. Smaller boats could go in a straight line since they wouldn't draw the attention of sea demons. That made it so that smaller flying boats could cross the sea much faster than larger ones. Huge flying boats had to go in a twisting path to avoid the territories of strong sea demons. This particular route was something the Xiantian Dao sect had decided upon through countless trials. They had a certain understanding of the distribution of the powerful sea demons, and this region was a relatively safe one. They could undergo a short period of hunting here. Then, before they drew the attention of stronger sea demons, they were to immediately leave. Normally, this short period lasted 3 days. They hadn't hunted on the way here to avoid trouble on the way back, so this opportunity was something they had to properly grasp. The flying boat stopped above the sea. Wang Mang and the others had already made their preparations, and they began to cast bait into the sea. This bait could draw over sea demons from thousands of miles away. Fellow disciples, let's go all out when the sea demons arrive. This is a benefit the sect gives us, and no matter how much we get, it'll be split equally between us. It's a rare opportunity, so work hard to kill more sea demons. We can only stay here for 3 days, said Wang Mang to everyone. Normally, he would have ordered them, but now he didn't dare to do so. Isn't slaughtering sea demons like this going too far? They didn't provoke us, said Meng Qi. She was somewhat unwilling to undergo such a large-scale slaughter of the sea demons. After all, as a beast tamer, she didn't want the sea demons to be slaughtered so recklessly. Senior apprentice sister, this time you're wrong. They aren't innocent. They're the scourge of the entire martial heaven continent, said a disciple. You were in the eastern wasteland, but you must have heard of beast tides, right? Yes. Meng Qi nodded. Beast tides were truly terrifying events. When the numbers of magical beasts grew too high, they would widen their territory, and that would inevitably clash with the human territory. Countless magical beasts would charge into human cities, terrifying everyone. The eastern wasteland's beast tide that you've heard of is nothing compared to when the sea demons attack. There are countless sea demons in the martial heaven sea ring, and every few years, they will gather on the shore and charge at the continent. If a region isn't able to hold them, they will kill countless innocents. When I was young, I barely escaped from those sea demons. But the rest of my family died to them, said that disciple. Looking back at his memories of that time, pain flashed through his eyes. He continued, there are just too many sea demons, and only by continuously slaughtering them can we barely maintain an equilibrium. That's why all the Central Plains powers will encourage hunting sea demons. Some sects even have hunting targets. So you shouldn't feel any guilt for this. Compared to the magical beasts on the land, sea demons are all cold-blooded, merciless, and emotionless. How strange. Then the sea demons only attack the Central Plains and not the other 4 regions? Asked Guoran. That's because of the storm zones. The storm zones only exist on the side of the eastern wasteland and other regions. Due to the spiritual qi of the Central Plains, no such storm zones exist. In truth, the only reason why the eastern wasteland, western desert, southern sea, and northern source are able to survive is because of the storm zones. The Central Plains has its hands full just dealing with their own defenses, so no one would reinforce the outer 4 regions. Those 4 regions are nothing more than 4 villages for the Central Plains, explained the disciple. Boom. Suddenly, the surface of the sea erupted. A huge figure soared into the sky, charging for the flying boat. Everyone looked and saw it was a giant fish 300 meters long. But its mouth took up the majority of its body. Looking at its aura, it should have reached the 6th rank. Wang Mang waved his hand, and a golden light pierced through the fish's head. It was instantly killed. As soon as it was killed, a senior disciple slashed apart its body and took out a large Niden from it. When the Niden was extracted, it was the size of a house. But once it was exposed to the air, it rapidly shrunk until it was the size of a fist. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen, you can hold this along with the Nadens from before. Wang Mang handed the Niden to Long Chen, along with a spatial ring. Previously, he had been the one directing people to handle the cyan-scaled monsters, and the Nadens were in his hands. Although these things were to be split equally, he wanted to express that he had no intention of stealing the spotlight from him. You can keep them. Forget about that unpleasant disagreement. We all trust you to handle this, so you can direct everyone. After all, you have the experience. Long Chen shook his head. He couldn't be bothered to spend the effort. The first fish was killed, and its corpse was tossed into the sea. This was done intentionally by Wang Mang so that its blood would draw over more sea demons. Elder Shah stood at the front of the boat, indifferently watching without making a sound. It was like he was an outsider unrelated to any of this. After just a moment, more sea demons began to charge out of the sea. Many of them had strange forms that the newcomers had never imagined. They had never seen such strange life forms. Some of the sea demons were like fish, but they had feet or were covered in barbs, and most curious of all, there was a frog-shaped one with only one eye. All kinds of strange forms appeared, but they had one thing in common: their brutal, bloodthirsty nature. The first thing those sea demons did was devour the corpses of their comrades. Then they attacked the flying boat. The chance to get rich has appeared. Everyone, work hard, shouted Wang Mang. Forming hand seals, runes revolved around him. Countless arrows shot through the sea demon's midst. At this time, it was possible to see the true power of the senior disciples. The attacks they unleashed were incomparably refined. Sometimes an arrow would pierce a sea demon's body and directly take out its Niden all in one move. That required incredibly precise control. Only the senior disciples took action at first, as they needed to be examples for everyone, teaching them how to effectively kill the sea demons and take out their Nadens. Different sea demons had Nadens at different positions. If the newcomers killed sea demons without extracting the Nadens, it would be a waste. Eventually, the Eastern Wasteland's disciples began to help as well. However, as sea expansion disciples, they had only just come into contact with magical arts, so their control was clearly worse. Many sea demon corpses fell into the sea with their Nadens still inside, wasted. Wang Mang's expression sank slightly. If this was before, he would have begun cursing these people for being useless. But now he could only endure. However, he felt a great deal of pain. That was money. The reason they were chosen for this mission was because they had planned and schemed for a long time. In fact, some had paid all their wealth as a bribe. If they didn't take advantage of this opportunity, they would end up losing out a great deal. So seeing these disciples hunt so clumsily, he was a bit panicked. Dragon Blood Warriors, go out as well. Foundation Forging Brothers, there's no need for you to kill the sea demons. Just extract their Nadens. We'll be in charge of our own duties, said Long Chen. He had to agree that the Eastern Wasteland's disciples were too clumsy. He saw that Wang Mang's nose had tilted from rage. The Dragon Blood Warriors took out treasure items. Cold rays of light shot out, killing the sea demons. Those sea demons were mostly 6th rank. There were only a few 7th rank ones, making killing them extremely easy. Seeing this, Wang Mang's expression improved slightly. The Dragon Blood Warriors killed each sea demon in just one attack, unlike the other disciples from the Eastern Wasteland. Now he just had to be in charge of collecting the Nadens, and their efficiency leaped. 2 hours later, they had gathered over 300 Nadens. But they were mostly all 6th rank Nadens. Long Chen frowned. Wasn't this just nonsense? Just how valuable could such things be? Wang Mang, come over. I need to ask you a few things. Long Chen suddenly beckoned to Wang Mang. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.